Good evening, and welcome to the first of two meetings of the DC Public Charter School Board that we'll be holding this month. As Vice Chair, I will be presiding over tonight's meeting, and I'm glad to be in person with my colleagues and staff. I'd like to start by welcoming my fellow board members, Treasurer Carissa Stanley Beatty, Secretary Shakura Adamafanian, Michelle Yan, Maura Marino, who is not present and will be voting by proxy, and Leah Cruzy, who may be joining us later. If she isn't, she will be voting by proxy, and Tony Williams. Tonight's meeting carries a theme that feels especially fitting for this time of year: caps, gowns, and growth. As we move closer to graduation season across the public charter school community, we're reminded that student success is measured not only by final milestones like walking across a stage, but also by the growth, resilience, and determination of students along the way. This evening, we'll take an important vote on charter evaluations, work that sits at the heart of the board's responsibility. Evaluations are more than reports or ratings. They represent years of effort from students, educators, families, and school leaders. They capture the progress schools are making, the challenges they're working to overcome, and the results that matter most for young people. In many ways, this is why we do what we do. Our role is to ensure that schools have the autonomy to innovate and serve their communities, while also holding them accountable for delivering strong outcomes for students. And of course, we're doing this at a time when education in Washington, D.C. continues to evolve. Across the city, conversations about budgets, enrollment trends, and the future of public education are front and center. Families are making important choices. The My School DC lottery closed just last week. Schools are adapting to meet evolving needs, and educators are working each day tirelessly to support students as they navigate both academic expectations and the challenges of the world around them. Against that backdrop, tonight's focus on student success and celebration is important. It reminds us that behind every policy discussion, every evaluation, and every vote are students whose growth and opportunities depend on the strength of the schools that serve them. I'd now like to turn it over to Dr. Michelle Walker-Davis to offer a few remarks before we move into the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sandman, for those thoughtful remarks and for highlighting why we do what we do. From early learning through post-secondary, and from students to the adults who guide and support them, our DC education community is truly soaring. Our theme tonight, Caps, Gowns, and Growth, captures that spirit perfectly. We are celebrating milestones, including 2 schools marking their 10th year of serving students in DC, while also recognizing the growth, resilience, and dedication that makes these achievements possible for everyone in our schools. Tonight, we have 2 presentations that connect directly to this theme. The first, Oversight as a Supportive Intervention, will show how our work with schools helps them improve and grow, ensuring students have the best possible opportunities to succeed. The second, Understanding Community Complaints, demonstrates our commitment to listening, supporting families, and facilitating communication, so that schools and communities can work together for student success. Before the staff presentations, we will review these 2 charter schools, both undergoing their 10-year evaluations. These reviews highlight the progress schools have made, the challenges they have overcome, and the academic and professional growth taking place across our education community. Finally, I want to close by thanking our school leaders, educators, and staff. Your dedication and hard work are at the heart of every student's success. It's because of your leadership and commitment that our students continue to reach new heights, from early learning classrooms to post-secondary programs. Thank you, and I look forward to our discussions tonight as we continue to celebrate growth, resilience, and achievement in public charter schools.
Thank you, Dr. Walker-Davis. At the beginning of every board meeting, the DC Public Charter School Board hears public testimony related to items on the agenda and listens to testimony on topics not related to any agenda items. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. If you need to make a few additional points, please email your testimony for us to read to public.comment@dcpcsb.org. Public officials who sign up to testify will be allowed to speak for up to 5 minutes. The hand-raising feature has been disabled. As a reminder, all written public comment is available to the public on our website. If you'd like to register to provide live testimony or submit a written comment to the board, you can find all testimony registration and submission information on our website under the Public Comment tab at dcpcsb.org. You can also submit your comments to public.comment@dcpcsb.org or call our public comment line to leave a voicemail testimony at 202-328-2660 and select option 2. As we move through each speaker, Jonah, our Zoom host for the evening, will promote each speaker from the attendee pool and unmute individuals speaking. Let's hear from the 3 individuals who signed up to speak this evening. I'd first like to invite to testify before the board, Christy Balch. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Hello, thank you. My name's Christy Balch. I'm a Ward 4 resident and a parent of 2 kids at Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School, and I'm also a close-by neighbor of the school. This evening is Breakthrough Montessori's 10-year charter review, and I'm excited to speak in support of the school's continuation and share what makes Breakthrough so special. My kids have thrived there. This is our 4th year at the school, and it has been amazing to see how their independence has been nurtured. Along with their unique curiosities. My son in 1st grade is developing a real love for math and has also been researching whales. My daughter in pre-K 4 loves doing math and art activities. My kids' teachers have gotten to know them so well, and I know they truly care about my kids. They know what works and what doesn't, and when and how to challenge them. The 3-year cycle means that the kids develop strong relationships with their teachers. Breakthrough does a great job nurturing social emotional skills, and the school really cultivates relationships among students. My kids have made wonderful friends, and I'm always struck by how kind the kids are to each other when they see each other outside of school. I'm amazed at how it seems like all the staffs know all the kids and work together to support the students. The feeling inside the school is very calm and peaceful, and I love seeing it firsthand when I get to go into the school for classroom observations, lesson share day, and birthday celebrations. Breakthrough works to be a welcoming and inclusive place for all families. I appreciate how there are so many touch points for families from daytime to evening meetings and events, online versus in-person events, and most of all, participation in key activities are equally accessible to all families. For example, the book fair, every student gets 1 book for free. So please mark me down as an enthusiastic supporter for the continuation of Breakthrough's charter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Balch. We appreciate your testimony this evening. Next, we'll hear from Keisha Igbazua. Please correct me if I mispronounced your name. I'm sorry if I did.
No worries. Yes, it's Keisha Bazua. Thank you. Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. My name is Keisha Bazua, and I'm a proud parent and Board of Trustees member of Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School. I have 3 children who currently attend the school and 1 who graduated. And we have been a part of the community since 2021. I'm here to strongly support the 10-year charter renewal for Breakthrough Montessori. The school is a cornerstone of our community, and it is unwavering in its commitment to Montessori principles. They continuously foster independence and a lifelong love of learning in our children from a very early age. Breakthrough is more than just a classroom, it's a reflection of Washington, D.C. Their commitment to diversity isn't just the mission statement, it's a daily practice that teaches our children how to thrive in a global society. Over the years, I've been deeply impressed by the school's dedication to growth and accountability. They don't just talk the talk, they constantly look at data and community feedback to improve. Finally, the sense of community at Breakthrough is unmatched. It's a place where families are seen, heard, and valued. I urge you to approve Breakthrough's 10-year charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Igbazwa, for joining us tonight. Finally, we'll hear from Zeke Reich. Welcome, Mr. Reich. Is he in the room? Oh, Mr. Reich, if you can hear me, if you could,
Hi, sorry. Yes, we're here.
no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and my son has gotten us a good background. Apologies. Okay. Just very quickly, I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm a parent in Ward 4. I'm here with my son, who's a fifth grader at Breakthrough Montessori. And we're just here to give a very, very enthusiastic support and statement of total positivity about this experience. I've had children at Breakthrough since 2019 when it was in the earlier location, and it has just been such a thoughtful education. I have three extremely different children, and I think the Montessori approach and Breakthrough's perspective on Montessori in particular has helped three kids with totally different sets of needs, personalities, emotions, feelings, learning styles, etc., really thrive. It's also just been an extraordinarily diverse experience. I think in many ways that has just watching my children really actually get a kind of anti-racist, inclusive, class, race, culture, nationality, breadth of experience has been a tremendous part of the breakthrough experience. And I think, of course, the administrators and just the teachers are just at such a level of thoughtfulness and intentionality that seems to me to come with the Montessori approach because you're working with a bunch of people who have just spent years thinking about how to bring a lot of consciousness to the classroom and a lot of reflective practice. So, on behalf of my kids and of my entire family, we just want to let you all know how much we appreciate the board's support for Breakthrough, and we hope for many more years and decades of a great school experience. Thank you all.
Mr. Reich, thank you for your testimony. What's your son's name?
His name is Matan, Matan.
Can you call him back to camera range so I can thank him?
I just lost him to baseball, unfortunately.
Tell him we really appreciated his guest appearance tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you to all our speakers this evening. This concludes the public comment portion of our agenda. I now move to approve the March 9th, 2020, I need a motion, please, to approve the agenda for the March 9th, 2026 board meeting. Is there a motion?
Out there. Thank you. I'll move to approve the March 9th, 2026 board meeting agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Secretary Adamafanian, would you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Standman.
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
Board Member Yan.
Aye.
Board Member Williams.
Aye.
Board Member Marino.
I have a proxy from Board Member Marino voting aye.
Board Member Crucy.
I have a proxy from Board Member Cruzy voting aye.
Vice Chair, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. The agenda is approved. Next on the agenda tonight, we have charter reviews for two schools. I'll yield the floor to Melody Sampson, Chief School Performance Officer, who will introduce each review. I'd also like to invite representatives from each school to provide remarks as Melody introduces their review. We'll begin with Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School.
Good evening. My name is Melody Sampson, and I'm the Chief School Performance Officer at the DC Public Charter School Board. Tonight, the board will vote on the charter review and continuance of Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School and Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter School. The following charter review standard applies to each school. The School Reform Act stipulates that DC PCSB shall review a school's charter at least once every 5 years. As part of this review, DC PCSB must determine whether the school failed to meet the goals and student academic achievement expectations set forth in its charter, and whether the school committed a material violation of applicable law or of its charter, including violations relating to the education of children with disabilities. If DC PCSB determines that a school has not met its goals or has committed a material violation of applicable law or of its charter, the board may, at its discretion, revoke the school's charter, or grant the school a conditional continuance. Additionally, there is a fiscal component to the charter review. Per the School Reform Act, the board is required to revoke a school's charter if it determines that the school has engaged in a pattern of non-adherence to generally accepted accounting principles, has engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, or is no longer economically viable. Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School and Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter School are each up for their 10-year charter review. Each school previously adopted the Performance Management Framework, or PMF, as charter goals. Given the disruption in schooling and data collection during the COVID-19 pandemic and DCPCSB's development of the Aspire system, DCPCSB ceased producing the PMF after school year 18-19 and did not assess goal attainment for school years 2021 or 21-22. Consequently, for this review period, DCPCSB staff assessed each school's charter goals performance using goal attainment pathways for school years 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25 as outlined in DCPCSB's charter goals policy. Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School educates 385 students in grades pre-K 3 through 6 at a single campus located in Ward 4. Breakthrough Montessori fully met a goal attainment pathway in school year 22-23 by exceeding the target score of 40% on OSSE's DC School Report Card. The school partially met a pathway in school year 23-24 by exceeding publisher growth criteria in reading, but not in math, on its nationally normed growth assessment, iReady. The school fully met a pathway in school year 24-25 by earning a level 3 or better on Aspire. DCPCSB staff determined the school had not committed a material violation of law or of its charter. Staff also determined that the school is not engaged in a pattern of non-adherence to generally accepted accounting principles, has not engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, and is economically viable. Based on these findings, DCPCSB staff recommends the board vote to continue Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter Schools charter. School representatives are available to speak about the school's performance over the past 5 years and to answer the board's questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sampson. And now invite the school representatives to come on screen. With the person who is leading the presentation, please introduce yourself and introduce your fellow representatives of the school.
Oh, okay, here we go. Hello. It is a pleasure to introduce myself as Breakthrough Montessori's Executive Director, Kat Park, and also former Director of Operations of the school. Also with me is current board chair and founder, former Director of Student Services, Allison Jones, interim principal and former primary AP, Zarina Mohammed, board member, parent, and former SHA president, Kendra Harpster. SHA is our parent organization. Patik, are you here? Patik Parikh of EdOps. He's our EdOps advisor. And then senior advisor and former executive director, Emily Hadeen. That's our group.
Okay, do you have a presentation you'd like to make?
Sure. Here are my opening remarks. Thank you to the members of the DC Public Charter School Board for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. On behalf of the Breakthrough team, let me express my appreciation for this thoughtful review process in which we carefully reflected on both qualitative and quantitative data. This process has allowed us to celebrate our strengths and also examine the challenges we must address as we enter our second decade as a public charter school. The process and Aspire framework also further highlighted challenges that lie within specific student subgroups, reinforcing that we need better tools to track these subgroups. That's why we're pursuing a data dashboard from Empower K-12. This hearing marks a significant milestone for our school. We are no longer the small startup that began in Petworth 10 years ago with just 90 students. Today, we serve 385 students just 2 blocks from the Tacoma Metro Station, fulfilling a core charter goal, educating children from pre-K 3 through 6th grade using the Montessori method. Another way to understand our growth is this. We have 10 years of experience serving students as young as 3 years old, but only 2 years of experience serving adolescents as old as 12. That matters as we refine our upper elementary program. The review also underscores how our student population has changed since the pandemic. In 3 years, our population of students with IEPs has grown from 51 to over 100, leading us to expand our continuum of support. Last spring, we opened our first self-contained resource classroom, and we are now expanding our instructional approaches to ensure every child is supported. The QSR affirms the strength of our faculty. 100% of classrooms were rated proficient or distinguished in the classroom environment, and we earned a 92.9% rating in classrooms being proficient in instruction. All our lead teachers are AMS or AMI certified. We are good at Montessori. Our classrooms are calm, purposeful communities where students feel safe to learn independently, collaborate in small groups, and grow both as leaders and followers. We are also proud of our progress in ELA. Between our 5 and 10-year review, we invested in evidence-based instructional methods like Orton-Gillingham and tiered support, including interventionists in ELA and math. As a result, Breakthrough's 2022 and 2023 PARCC scores in ELA surpassed the city average, and in 2024, our ELA scores surpassed the sector average. In 2025, our iReady results showed our highest ever percentage of students reaching their growth goal in reading. At the same time, we are honest about our academic challenges. Our state assessment performance, especially in math, requires us to examine our testing culture and the bridge between conceptual Montessori math and the abstract demands of DC CAPE. In response, we have taken concrete steps this year. We introduced IXL in upper elementary to align instruction more closely with state standards and assessment formats. Teachers are using it for targeted small group lessons and independent practice. Lower elementary classrooms are strengthening typing skills to better prepare students for online assessments. Our middle of the year iReady data shows improvement. Our median progress towards typical annual growth in math is 8% higher than it was this time last year. One highlight is our expanded after-school tutoring program. Through our partnership with an external provider, students receive 60 minutes of math tutoring 3 days a week from Tuesday through Thursday. The results are encouraging. 21% of students participating in tutoring have moved from performing one level below their current grade level to performing on grade level. 10% of students who are performing 3 grades below have moved to performing just 1 grade below. Others have demonstrated measurable growth within their performance levels. To strengthen this work for next year, Breakthrough recently completed a 4-week design sprint with City Schools Collaborative focused on high-impact tutoring HIT models. Our goal is to refine math tutoring so that it can reach the Gen Ed classroom next year and possibly be replicated to focus on reading as well. So here's to the next 10 years. We have nappers, we have K-pop demon hunters, we have students discovering letter sounds for the first time, while our 5th and 6th graders represent nations as delegates in Montessori Model UN in New York City. That full arc from early childhood to adolescence is the beauty of our story as a public Montessori elementary school in our nation's capital. We recognize that our growth in size also requires us to see the big picture, the forest, not just the trees. We are proud of our growth and accomplishments over the past 10 years, and we know there's still important work ahead. Thank you, and I now welcome questions from the PCSB board.
Thank you, Ms. Park. Board members, questions? Go ahead. Ms. Yan.
Oh, okay, I'll start. Thank you, Ms. Park, for the presentation, and in particular for the deep dive that you gave on math that actually answered many of the questions that I had, and also I think demonstrated the level at which you all are going into subgroup data, splitting out different grade levels, and taking a more targeted approach. You also spoke to, just over the course of your growth, the expansion of your special education population. And I know that you've had some challenges in past years with the completion of the initial special education evaluations in a timely manner. And so I was hoping you could just speak to actions that you've taken to remedy this and improvements that you all may have seen in recent years.
I can start off and then I invite others to join. So one of the things that we did also this year, and I didn't include it in our opening remarks, but we expanded our partnership and work with the SPED Co-op, who has helped build our capacity to support the IEP renewal process. And so as of today, I believe we're at 96% of IEPs being in compliance. So we're in pretty good shape. Would anyone else from the team like to add to that?
Sure. As the founding director of student support and therefore special education at Breakthrough, I have been in close communication with Kat as board chair around how we are making sure that Breakthrough serves all students. Another thing that I'm proud of is how the school is proactively considering our models and approach to ensure that all children get the level of service that allows them to succeed, and doing some skilling up of our special education teachers with the special education co-op, as well as considerations about how we can make our program more impactful for children across the board in strategic ways.
Thank you. That's very helpful. No further questions.
Board Member Williams.
Hi, first of all, let me just say thank you. I grew up not just down the street from Breakthrough Montessori over on Whittier Street, so familiar with the community and the incredible work that the team does. I was curious, looking at it, it looked like that you also had a decline in your re-enrollment rate while you've also grown class size. Talk to me a little bit about what's behind that.
I had a bunch of notes, but I will start off and then invite also our former ED to chime in as well. So Breakthrough is unique as an elementary school because we actually offer grades all the way up to 6th grade. So like I said, we're serving students as young as 3 all the way up to 12. And when we look and zoom in at the data, re-enrollment data, just for our upper elementary grades, what we see is that families 4th and 5th are going back into the lottery because they want to find a middle school option. So if you were to remove the 6th grade students, our overall re-enrollment rate is actually 4 or 5% higher if we didn't have the 6th grade. Emily, would you like to add?
Thank you so much, Kat. I will jump in here. So I think it is really interesting to look at our re-enrollment rates per grade. Like Kat says, Breakthrough has made the unconventional decision to offer 6th grade in the context of an elementary environment. And we're really proud to do that for families that really want to benefit from that 3rd and final year in an upper elementary Montessori environment. But we go into that decision knowing that most of our families were going to transition into middle school after the 3. We had a re-enrollment rate of 82.2%. The following year, which was school year 23-24, that re-enrollment rate dipped 10%, down to 72.2%. And that is the year that we introduced 6th grade. So about 30% of our 5th graders stay for 6th grade, which means 70% of our rising 6th graders make the very understandable decision to transfer to a middle school at that point. So if you look at our re-enrollment pre-K 3 to 5th instead of pre-K 3 to 6th, as Kat said, those numbers are 4 to 5% higher. So in 23-24, it would have gone from 72 up to 76%. And for the subsequent year, it would have gone from 71 up to 76%. What is also really interesting is to look at kind of re-enrollment among those elementary grades. Between 1st and 5th grade, we see re-enrollment rates that are between 80 and 87%. And we have some initial data from this year, of course, unfinalized, unaudited, but some of our elementary grades have had re-enrollment rates of 90%. So we are seeing kind of 2 attrition points. First, the 5th to 6th grade point that Kat and I have both addressed. We do also see some attrition from our primary into our lower elementary program. So that can be pre-K 4 into kindergarten. Sometimes it's kindergarten into 1st grade. But the narrative that we are seeing, not only in the data, but from our conversations with families, is that there's a whole lot of interest in Montessori primary or preschool elementary or preschool or primary education, and that we do have families that join the school with an intention or a plan to seek another educational setting for those elementary years. So we do also recognize as a school, part of our work is to help families joining us at the pre-K level see and understand the benefits of that whole elementary scope and sequence for our program. Thank you.
Secretary Adamapani.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Breakthrough team, and congratulations for getting to this point. My one question is just for members of the board. Would love to hear a little bit about how you all perform academic and operational oversight for the school.
Yes, I will take that. And then Kendra, happy to hear what you have to add, as well as you've been on the board longer than I have. I've been on the board about 2 years, and I was voted in as board chair in October because I'm experienced in both Montessori and school leadership, which is key generally in a public Montessori school, but also in our 10-year charter review year. We have a couple of strategies in place. At every board meeting, we review academic and financial reports, including our scores on DC CAPE, iReady, and also the trends that Zarina is seeing that aren't measured by our assessment. Some of the things that show up in a QSR, are our classrooms settled? What's the engagement level of the children in our classrooms? Some of those soft skills that are so important as prerequisites to the learning skills. We have an academic committee, of which I'm part, that meets at least 3 times a year. I think we may have already met 3 times this year, but we're going to meet more to review and dig more deeply into that data. We're super excited about the dashboard that Kat is getting together, just because, you know, when I started at Breakthrough, we had about 90 children. And so you could know every child, you could know everything that was happening with every child and all of their demographics, just, you know, without even Excel. We've gone through a long Excel phase, and now we're to a point where Excel is really not meeting our needs anymore in order to be able to see those trends on an ongoing basis. So we, as the board, are very excited to be able to see some of those more high-level trends more easily without asking questions that cause Kat and team to do hours of data analysis after every board meeting. In terms of financial oversight, the same. We have a finance committee that meets at least 3 times a year, and we review some of those key metrics, days of cash on hand, gross margin, FAR score at every board meeting as well. Kendra, anything to add there?
You were very thorough. I was going to talk about committees, but I would add that our board is very diverse in terms of our skill sets. We are not one size fits all. I have no background in education, and yet I'm, on the finance committee. I am constantly part of all of the conversations that make up that are important to have, and in looking at like the 360. And I think that the other members of the board who are not on this present right here tonight, we only kind of complement each other and bring, new perspectives to Kat and to the rest of the school.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Thank you, Vice Chair Salmon. I just have a few questions for the Breakthrough team. I want to start, and you all don't have to speak to it unless you wanted to. I want to acknowledge that you all did some internal control work in 2024 in response to an audit finding regarding a material weakness. So I want to note that and acknowledge that you all did that work. If you want to speak to it, you can. Otherwise, I just wanted to say that you had done it, and I acknowledge that you've done it. My next questions are related to finance. So thank you for teeing up your information about the finance committee and sort of starting to talk about your financial oversight. I noticed that you all, that we documented an operating loss that you experienced from, I think, 2021 to 2024. Tell me about that loss. Tell me what it was generated by and sort of how you've recovered. What's the story with that?
Kat, do you want? I will jump in if that's okay with Kat. So a few things to note between FY 21 and 24. is Breakthrough, I think, did a very good job of stewarding our financial resources during the COVID years. And so when we did emerge from the pandemic, we had a really healthy number of days of cash on hand, and we had a really healthy cash position. So the finance committee and the school leadership team, we made a thoughtful and strategic decisions to dip into some of those cash reserves to make important investments in our school. Specifically, we did some leasehold improvements to expand breakout spaces for necessary student services. We created a school playground and a really large, lovely school garden. And so then coming up to FY25, those investments were made. And so you do see like a kind of a healthy return to funding levels and operating expenses. So we ended fiscal year 25 with a positive gross margin, and then we are projected to end fiscal year 26 also with a positive gross margin. Now, I'm not entirely sure, and I know that Patik from EdOps is on the call and can also speak to this, but I think part of our operating deficits is also caused by accounting practices related to non-cash depreciation.
Okay.
Is that, Patik, is that correct? Or am I steering into other topics?
No, that is correct. The deficit is also largely because of non-cash depreciation. If we just exclude depreciation, the school was still generating a surplus, which can also be seen from our growing cash balance, which has been growing over the years. As it can also be seen from the days of cash on hand, which has been consistently going up.
Very good. That explains it. Thank you. I call that an administrative loss if you're talking about changes to the balance sheet or classifications of certain items. So that makes perfect sense to me. Let me move on to your, you have a balloon debt payment that was supposed to be paid in, I think, April 2025, and you extended it. Talk to me about that. Is that private financing? Is that an Aussie loan? What's the nature of that? And then what are your plans in 2028 when it matures again?
Sure. Kat, would you like me to jump in as well? Okay, will do. So yes, when Breakthrough embarked on the process of building out our Tacoma campus, we developed a relationship with our senior lender, City First Bank. We also do have a smaller loan note with Aussie, but City First is the senior and primary lender. And when we began those conversations back in 2019, the initial plan was a 5-year construction loan. However, from the very beginning, we were having open and collaborative, transparent conversations with our senior lender about the possibility of refinancing at the 5-year mark. So this was very much in the works, in the plan from the beginning of the loan life. And then as we look to 2028, those conversations of possible refinancing are ongoing, although we are building up strong cash reserves to start aggressively paying down that debt.
Good for you. So then, so help me understand the loan with City First. It's construction financing, or it's already extended. It's money that you've used for construction already. Ooh,
yes, it was a construction loan that we took out to build our facility in Tacoma. Yeah, so all that construction is done, and now
I got it.
The loan is in repayment.
Got it. And so then it will balloon again in 2028, and I'm assuming you'll work with City First, who seems to be friendly in terms of what those terms look like. If you are able to, it sounds like, retire the whole thing, you will. How much is it? How much is
We don't expect to retire the entire loan.
Okay.
We have one smaller loan that is from the build out of the first floor of our Tacoma location, and then it was a bigger loan to complete the campus.
Okay. And so how much is it? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Patik, do you have the exact number? You could chime in. It is in the ballpark of 10 million, but I think Patik has the exact number.
Okay.
Yes, I think the bigger loan is around 6 million and the smaller one is around 1.9, and then Aussie is another 2 million. So overall 10 million.
Okay. So I just want to talk about the one with City First, because that's the one that's going to mature in 2028. So it came due in April of 2025, you extended it. Were your terms substantially better, worse, different, or the same in terms of the extension in April 2025?
My understanding is they were largely the same.
Okay, very good. Okay, all right. And then I have a question for staff. Thank you to the breakthrough team. Will, on the report that we were provided, the budgeted 2026 current ratio is marked as NA. Tell me, I'm sure there's a reason for that. Tell me why that is.
Sure. Yeah, the FY26 numbers in the column you're referring to in the report are budgeted numbers, and we don't collect balance sheet accounts in the budgeted template. Thus, we don't calculate the current ratio at the top of the year when the report is written. Around that same time, we are collecting fourth quarterly financials, so we have the accurate information about the current ratio at that moment in time, and that is reflected in the chart. We do collect the balance sheet information with each of the quarterly financials. So we've got the live information at Q4 at the same time we're collecting the budget. But then we also have access to that information as we start in this year, FY26, at the first quarter. And for the sake of breakthrough right now, we have information regarding their second quarterly financials. So if you refer to the board book, there's a document called the Subsequent Financial Update Memo, which is a new tool we're using this year to offer clarity about what's occurred in a school's financial experience since the report period was over. And in that Subsequent Financial Update Memo, you can find the current ratio listed for Breakthrough Montessori. At this time, it's 3.0, which is well above the target for that specific key financial indicator.
Thank you for that, and thank you for referencing the subsequent memo. I was going to do it, but you beat me to it. So thank you for the answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for me, Vice Chair.
Vice Chair Salmon, I have another question.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, breakthrough team. Wanted to look question for you all. At your 5-year review, one of the conditions of your continuance was around leadership retention. Would love to hear a little bit more. Ms. Park, I know that you're new to your seat, and so would love to hear a little bit more about what the work has been with respect to leadership retention. I mean, honestly, you have interim seats now. I get it. Just want to hear a little bit more about what the work has been. And then Ms. Park, if you can talk a little bit about your onboarding as well and the work with the board.
Emily, I think you're actually best pleased to take this one again, as you have some of that history beyond, the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So at our 5-year charter review in 2020, one of our conditions was to focus on leadership retention, particularly of the executive director. I did stay in that position until the end of last school year. So there was a great deal of stability in the role of the executive director between the 5 and the 10-year charter review, with my departure from the school just in July of 2025. But more than that, I think coming out of our 5-year charter review, we looked a lot at what it takes to support and develop a charter school leader. And we invested in coaching. I received regular coaching, and Kat has continued that practice of receiving coaching. In addition, we invested in the practice of meaningful leadership reviews via 360. So I completed 360 reviews that provided really robust stakeholder insight into my leadership and areas for growth, which then informed very specific goals that I worked towards. And again, this is a practice that Kat has continued and has already completed, I believe, 360 so far this year. So I think a lot of the work that is done is moving forward and has supported Kat well in this transition. And I'll pass it over to Kat and Allison to talk about this current school year.
Thank you for that, Emily, and thank you for the question. When I introduced the team tonight, I tried to stress as much as possible that, Allison Jones is our current board chair, but she was a former director and founder of the school. Emily Hadeen is a senior advisor and former executive director. Kendra Harpster is a current parent board member. She's been with us forever. So I mention that because I think one of the strengths of Breakthrough is continuity and commitment to continuity and understanding that leadership roles, especially at the ED level, requires as much continuity as possible. So it was a board decision to support Emily to stay on this full year as a senior advisor, and that has been a tremendous amount of help. Both just not for historical context, but even as an emotional supporter. And I am grateful for her this year. So I think, and I think the sector also acknowledges that when there's an ED transition, that having coaches and support from a former leader is important. So I am very, very grateful for my first year and what that's felt like.
If I could add too that I think part of the board's decision when we offered you the job, Kat, was to add to that. You know, we knew you. Some of us knew you. I definitely knew you since I've been here for so long. But I even feel within the community, the parents, the teachers, that there was a kind of desire for this. This is somebody who knows what we're doing. This is somebody who has been here before, who is current on our mission. She's you know, but in a new role so that she can grow and the school can grow with her. So.
And I will say also as a board member that we had a very rigorous and multi-part interview process. We did not just hire Kat because of her experience. We hired her because she demonstrated fully the characteristics necessary for the role. I will also say that, you know, we tend to focus on the leadership at the top, which is important. But one of the things I'm proud about at Breakthrough is that since I was there, we have a strong history of promoting from within. Looking at Zarina started as the primary coach and then became the primary AP and is now our interim principal. And so making sure we're investing in our current staff so we have a bench. And speaking for Eno, our chief director of operations, wrong nomenclature, our director of operations, who's not here. One of the other things that Breakthrough's invested in over the last 5 years is externalizing and systematizing policies and procedures so that our leadership is not so person dependent and that knowledge and history hasn't been lost.
Thank you very much. And kudos to you all for figuring out what works best for your community. And it sounds like, Ms. Park, you are well supported. These people know exactly what you're going through. So very good. Thank you all.
Other questions? Ms. Park, your opening presentation anticipated and addressed the questions that I had. I have no questions beyond those that my fellow board members have already asked. I want to thank and commend you, the Breakthrough team, for the detail and the thoughtfulness of your presentation and for your responsiveness to our questions tonight. You came to this meeting very well prepared. I'm impressed. Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to continue the charter of Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School.
I second. Thank you. Vice Chair Sandman.
The microphone is flashing. Yeah, okay. Now it's working. I vote aye. Enthusiastically aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
I'm an aye.
Board Member Yan.
Aye.
Board Member Williams.
Aye.
Board Member Marino.
I have a proxy from Board Member Marino voting aye.
Board Member Cruzy.
I have a proxy from Board Member Cruzy voting aye.
Vice Chair, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. You are unanimously approved for your 10-year review. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. Next, we'll hear from about Washington Leadership Academy, up for a 10-year review. Board Member Williams is recused from Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter School. He has stepped away from our meeting and will return when our discussion of Washington Leadership Academy is concluded. And I'd like to ask the school representatives to join us now.
Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter School educates 402 students in grades 9 through 12 at a single campus located in Ward 5. Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter School did not meet a goal attainment pathway in school year 22-23, nor did it substantially or partially meet a pathway that year. In school year 23-24, the school partially met a pathway by meeting or exceeding state or sector performance or demonstrating improvement in 9 of 13 transitional goals measures. The school fully met a pathway in school year 24-25 by attaining a level 3 or better on Aspire. DC-PCSB staff determined the school has not committed a material violation of law or of its charter. DC-PCSB staff also determined the school has not engaged in a pattern of non-adherence to generally accepted accounting principles, has not engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, and is economically viable. Based on these findings, DC-PCSB staff recommends the board vote to continue Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter Schools charter. Representatives from the school are available to speak about the school's performance over the past 5 years and to answer the board's questions.
WLA representatives, if the person who will be leading the presentation could introduce themselves and introduce your fellow representatives of the school.
Hello, everyone. I just got promoted to panelist, so give me 1 second. That name is not also me. It is Eric Colazo. All right, folks, checking in to make sure I have my team here. Should have 4 others. All right, I see our folks coming in. All right, folks, greetings. It's a pleasure to be here for our tenure review. I am going to introduce myself and allow my team to also introduce themselves. So I'll start off. I am Eric Colazo. I am the Executive Director for Washington Leadership Academy, and I am here with 4 other members of our community, 3 board members and 1 student. So I'll turn it over to Erica if she is on. She may be still going in. So BC, in the meantime, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Visa Adele, and I currently serve as the Academic Committee Chair. Nice to be with you this evening.
Thank you, BC. I'll turn it over to Arya next.
Hey, good evening, board members. Arya Parbisi, WLA Board Treasurer.
Thank you, Arya. And then we have 2 others, if you can elevate them. One is Erica Beal, and the other one is Samuel Price, if you see them in there.
We're not seeing them, is that right?
Yeah, Erica Beal and Sam are waiting to be promoted as panelists.
Hello, my name is Erica Beal, and I am the WLA Board Chair.
Thank you, Erica. And is Sam in here yet?
Oh, okay. My name is Stacy Kane also. Yeah, my name's Samuel Price, and I'm a student at Washington Leadership Academy.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. And thank you for your patience, everyone. I am going to share my screen, so give me just a moment. Okay. So real quick, just an overview of what I'll be presenting. Just going to give some background on us as WLA. You'll hear a little bit more about the board. You hear a little bit more about our students. You'll hear a little bit more also just about the context of WLA. And then we'll wrap up towards our achievement over the past 5 years, and then where we're moving towards and aiming to go forward in the next 5, 10, etc. So I'll start off first. Again, my name is Eric Colazo. I have recently taken on this position as executive director. I had the pleasure of serving as a principal for WLA for the past 6 years. And I am a longtime DC educator. I've been in DC since 2010. I've educated both in DCPS and other charter schools since then. And I have a range of experience from elementary through high school, but primarily high school. Our board of directors consists of, over the past few years, and the start of this 5-year tenure for review, Tony Williams, who is of course now in PCSB, and our new chair, Erica Beal, as of January 2026. We also have other members. We have BC, who just introduced themselves, Aria. We have also Saba, Mache, and Paul. And just gave some background so you know that we also do have a diverse background for our members in the board as well. Now, a little bit more about our students. We 100% believe that our current and future leaders are in our school building, including Sam, who you'll hear from later. We are the third highest special education population of any DC public charter high school at 27.2%, and 18.2% of our students require level 2 to 4 support, and that has been consistent throughout our history in our 10 years. We had the fifth highest English language learner population of any DC public charter high school, and over half, at 55.7%, are considered at risk. Now, when it comes to the context of DC and the rest of our public high schools, WLA ranked 13th out of 39 total public high schools in the DC OSSE school report card last year. When 5 public high schools that are selective are removed, we are ranked 8th. When schools with significantly different populations are removed, WLA moves up to 2nd, and we are consistently ranked number 1 at all standalone high schools. When it comes to performance and compliance and finances, our demand for WLA still continues to be very high. We've hit our enrollment targets every single year of operating since our founding, and 25-26 has the highest enrollment ever with over 400 students enrolled. WLA has always had clean audits and never had a single material audit finding in its history, and also we've remained in full compliance with the requirements of both OSSE and PCSB since its founding. Some highlights over the 10 years, especially the most recent, just want to give some love and attention to. We've hosted a number of hackathons. We are a computer science school, and our most recent was with an AI company called PlayLab. We received the AI K-12 Student Agency Award in February 2026 last month. We've also continued partnership with the University of Maryland to develop freely available student-centered CS and data analysis curriculum. Bloomberg has funded our summer academic programming to make sure that transition for 9th graders is effective and smooth as they transition from middle to high. And also we've contributed to a dramatic increase in women and also students of color taking the AP Computer Science test or exam in DC. And last but certainly not least, we have also co-created with both students and staff a standards-aligned high school ELA curriculum with Common Lit. So I want to take us into our performance over the past 5 years, starting with school year 22-23. We see the gain, we see the growth in comparison from that first year to our most recent year, where we ended at a 53.3 score on our Aspire framework. That is just 1.7 points away from level 2. And over the span of those years, we've had a 25.4 growth, which is a 91% improvement. And what we want to really lean into and say, how do we continue to make this growth happen, is we really identified 2 key areas. We strengthened our instructional practices. We created our 3-week cycles of instruction, and that was a co-created effort that we did with our instructional team, where we really lean into lesson plan review the first week, the observation and feedback of classrooms and seeing the execution of that instruction happening, and then finally looking at the data and seeing how the students perform and thinking about what that reteach should look like. And now more recently, the developments that we've been able to do using AI, using and creating bots that can help support this intervention. Now we actually have a faster turnaround for intervention because we have bots that can literally create standards aligned reteach lessons based on the student data. The second big component that we really leaned into heavily is the idea of staff professional development. We've leaned more heavily into dedicated, like just having a dedicated budget to make sure that we're having external opportunities for teachers. We know that sharing best practices and seeing what else works outside of your school is essential, and they bring that back to our building, and also partnering with organizations to develop those in-house talents as well. And how we move forward, we really want to think about how WLA is building that competitive edge. And the first way that we look at that is this idea of our computer science identity. And with that, we've created the DC AI Collaborative, which is our way of connecting with other DC schools to really essentially share best practices around AI teaching and learning with each other. The goal is essentially to strengthen and not replace human-centered learning, but it's really to support that student achievement and post-secondary success. And we also understand that in this era with AI becoming more and more prevalent, schools absolutely need to be more nimble. And how that ties into student leadership, which is our second component, is really leaning into our identity as a leadership academy. We cultivate student voice in-house through our in-house programming with a teacher assistant or TA program at WLA. We give students real-time experience where they co-create, co-lead, and work alongside adults in the building to make sure they're demonstrating and developing that voice early on before they leave the four walls of WLA. We also build student capacity and encourage opportunities to advocate through external internships and experiences. And how does this tie to our computer science identity and where we're looking towards when it comes to AI? We know that AI is going to cause disruption. It already has, especially when it comes to entry-level positions. And so what does that mean for our students to get that competitive edge? It means that we need to build future leaders and foster those future leaders who can think critically, adapt, advocate for themselves, and network. And what better way to say that than to give one of our students their voice? And I'm going to pass it on to Sam, who can talk about that competitive edge and how WLA has fostered that sense of computer science identity, that student leadership, and how he is moving forward as a senior going into his graduation. So Sam, feel free, you can jump on.
Okay. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Samuel Price. I go to Washington Leadership Academy, and my school has played a major role in the opportunities and achievements that I've been able to pursue. Because of the environment my school creates, I've been able to grow as a leader and gain many opportunities that normal students do not have access to. For my school, I participate in Model United Nations. I serve as captain of my wrestling team, and I was honored to be selected as a finalist for the Policy Foundation Scholarship. My school has exposed students like me to real-world opportunities beyond my classroom that support my outside community. For instance, this year, I actually helped launch the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, which only 2 students were selected within DC. I pursued different internships with Citibank and Deloitte, and I do have internships lined up all the way until my sophomore year in college. An amazing thing that I love about Washington Leadership Academy is the emerging AI technology. My teachers, for instance, they create different chat boxes that help us engage with our work and give us a way to deeper dive into our work without giving us answers, but helping us learn from it. With this, we've been able to pursue different events within Microsoft. We've talked to the leaders of Microsoft, such as the vice president, and just spoken at different AI panels about the future of AI. Myself, I've even started an AI-driven investment analytics company where I help people within my community with over 300 plus people just engage with AI and how it will develop in the future. Outside of school, I stay committed to my community with fundraising efforts, such as my most notable one is with Children's National Hospital and different events within the Library of Congress, supporting different awareness of diseases that children my age and a lot younger struggle with. None of these opportunities happen by accident. They happen because my school intentionally developed leadership, confidence, and initiative in its students. So honestly, I just want to thank you all for supporting me. And I want to thank you for investing in students like myself. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sam. 5 stars and 2 thumbs up. You are quite the leader. Very impressive. Thank you for the outstanding presentation.
Thank you so much, Sam. And as I wrap up, I just want to leave with this final thought. At WLA, we want our students to thrive in the world and change it for the better. And we know that happens when it comes to developing student support and learning and development in that leadership capacity. And that is what's going to give them that competitive edge to succeed. So I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. And I welcome questions at this time.
Board members, who has questions? Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Oh, okay. So, good evening, WLA team. Thank you for that presentation. I just want to get right to it. I want to talk about your proficiency rates. You're lagging the state in the state assessment for ELA and math. Tell me what you're implementing to change that? What are your strategies? How are you looking at it?
Sure. I mean, we definitely acknowledge that there's room to grow. And I think we've also heard from other executive directors in these positions that, we're working with the population of students that are entering WLA or entering other schools at ninth grade, 4 to 5 years behind, both in reading and math. And I think that's been the lion's share of the work that we need to acknowledge. And I think how we've done that is in that 3-week cycle that we talked about. We really wanted to lean into this idea of intervention. It is so critical to recognize what those exact gaps are. And so the reason why we split it up into the 3-week cycle is because we recognize that each individual step is so important. In the lesson plan review, we need to see, our teachers actually thinking about ahead of time proactively what are the misconceptions that our students can encounter. In that observation piece where we're getting feedback, we have to see an execution, because you can have all that stuff prepared very well, but if you don't execute well, that may need to be some coaching that needs to happen to actually go from lesson plan to implementation. And then finally, last but not least, the idea of really leaning into what the data is saying. What did our students perform? Where were those miscommunications or misunderstandings? How do we address that? And so I think that's been the greatest effort in at least helping us see better results. And I think it's just also just giving more kids opportunity for specific targeted intervention, as we've been doing now. We offer that in Saturday school. We do that during opportunities after school as well, and making sure specific students are being pulled for that type of effort. But I think that's where we need to lean into, is this idea that kids are coming in with gaps. We acknowledge it. It is definitely not an excuse, but it is something that we need to make sure that we are paying very close attention to if we want to make sure that kids are meeting that proficiency.
Talk to me when you made the statement about leaning into the data to see, I guess, explain that piece of it for me, because what does that mean when you say leaning into the data? And tell me how that translates into change.
Sure. I think so. It's like kind of multifaceted here. I think the overall idea when I say leaning into the data is really getting into the nitty gritty. All right, my 1A class, they performed out of, let's just say 25 students, 5 were proficient, 10, chose answer B, and that means that's this misconception. 5 also got this answer C, which means it's this misconception. And so what that is again, getting the nitty gritty of each individual class performance and seeing that, okay, if we have this breakdown in misconceptions, we need to now rethink and see, how do we reteach this? Is this something that the whole class didn't get, so now the whole class needs to reteach? Or is this something that, well, the next lesson I have to actually break down into smaller groups and give that individualized attention? And so when I say data, it's really getting into the actual misunderstandings, misconceptions that our students are demonstrating, and then really responding to it in a way that's targeted towards their needs. And so it's being, I guess I would say, it's not necessarily a new practice. It's just making sure we're leaning heavily into make sure we're spending actual time in class to do those intervention practices, that we're actually breaking down small groups, making sure we're paying attention to those individual needs. And then the second piece I was going to say too is in that aspect of student leadership, it's recognizing those students that are doing well and giving them a leadership moment to have a role and say, hey, you've mastered this concept. I need you to support this group over here. Which again, when you are the teacher and you can teach it well, you also are reinforcing those for yourself as well. And so we've pulled students that are experts or that are mastered at that whatever concept or whatever standards being worked on at that time, and we actually do have them take a leadership role and co-teach with the teacher and break down those specific lessons with the specific groups that they're assigned to.
And so these are things that you all are implementing now, or are these things that you're thinking about doing? I guess what I'm trying to draw a line between what we have in our data in terms of your actual performance to what you're either saying you're going to do, or you're going to implement, or maybe you've already started to implement it. I'm trying to draw a line between what's in the data and where you're going.
Yeah.
And like I said, how that actually translates into real change. So go there with me. So you're doing these things now, or you're thinking about doing them now, or you have a plan to do them now, or you've already started to do them?
No, we started this for the past, I'd say, 2 years. This is now the third year. And that's why you see in the performance, the achievement has increased over time.
Okay.
So yeah, this has been something that we've been refining over time now for about 2 years. This is our third year now.
Okay. Good enough. I appreciate the response. I hear you. I am always concerned about proficiency, particularly when you have high schoolers. I'm happy to hear that you all are thinking about that. I think that that's necessary. I think that that's critical. Aside from your actual rating on Aspire, we all know that there's underlying proficiency data, and we
Yeah.
need to be paying attention to that because otherwise we're not serving our students.
Oh, for sure. And we definitely need to continue to, like I said, mind those gaps and pay attention to all the subgroups that need that support.
Secretary Adamathanian.
Thank you so much. Just to build on the question that Treasurer Stanley Beatty brought up concerning academic performance, would love to hear from the board and particularly board chair and Mr. Oyedele. How you doing? Okay. Would love to hear what the board engagement is around academics and what does that conversation look like? How are you supporting the executive director? I don't want to mispronounce your name, so pardon me, but how are you? Can you say your name again, actually?
Colazo?
Oh, no, your last name. You said Colazo?
Yeah, Eric Colazo.
Colazo, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand too how you partner with the executive director, Mr. Colazo, around these issues.
Absolutely. Again, I'm Erica Beal. I am the board chair. Can you please remind me of the previous speaker's last name? How do I say your name?
Ms. Stanley Beatty.
I'm right there with you. Absolutely. And we are remarkably proud of WLA's growth to proficiency. We grew 26%. It's 26 percentage points last year, which put us 13th among 188 DC schools. And that's still not good enough because our proficiency rate was 24% on ELA. And so we have our mindset is so what now what as a board. We believe in our children. We know that ultimately growth is one important measure, and because of all of he was Principal Colazo, excuse me, Executive Director Colazo and the entire WLA's incredible hard work and efforts, that is why we are seeing this growth, and that is why we feel so emboldened and confident about the future. And we know at the end of the day that the current proficiency rates are not where our kids are. We know that they can do better, and it is on us as the results, as the adults, and me as the board chair, to make sure that they're reaching their full potential. So it's a both and. We're proud of the growth, but we have our eyes on the ultimate prize, which is proficiency. And the way that we go about that is every quarterly meeting, we're looking at academic data, we're looking at Aspire framework, and we're looking at not just the Aspire framework, but again, what are those proficiency rates? How are we meeting the bar, and where are we off track, and what are we going to do differently? Because to your point, if we've been doing the same thing and reaching, we are proud of the results, right? But it's still not the ultimate bar. We've got to keep trying. So we have academic committee meetings, and the board is deeply involved. A lot of us are former educators and very aware that this is a gap that we need to continue to close. I'll pass it over to BC for additional academic chair.
Sure. I would just add, in addition to looking at the data, we look at obviously several key performance indicators like ninth grade on track, attendance data, suspension data, and we're regularly reviewing progress towards goals in our quarterly academic committee meetings in addition to the quarterly discussion at our board meetings. I do meet with Eric periodically, but I would say on average about once a month to discuss other pertinent issues pertaining to leadership, questions around staff, professional development, so things that sort of range in nature, but are generally connected to progress towards our academic goals. And so I think there's a culture of conversation, a culture of transparency around academic performance, and I think we regularly evaluate how interventions are going, strategies that are being used to improve performance for students, and ultimately try to interrogate whether or not we're on track to meeting our goals.
And one more thing I'll add is that we have remarkable interventions, and we've also been working on tier 1. So each month, Eric and I will walk through the school and look at what is that tier 1 instruction. And, he's been remarkable about making sure that the overall academic rigor is there beyond the interventions.
Thank you for that. I just, again, as you all strive and move as you all strive to increase proficiency and to grow and support your young people, it's really important that your board, you're very academically rooted, school leadership rooted board, lean in and support. So kudos there. My last question is to you, Sam. Sam or Samuel, which do you prefer?
You can call me Sam. That's fine.
Sam, first of all, I just want to commend you, not just for what you were sharing today, but just the life that you're living. And I can see it. You're going to lead. And I'm just remember me when you get there. That's all. I'm going to try to get my job in. Anyway, my question to you, Sam, is when you think about a high school student or a middle school student who's trying to select their next high school, how would you pitch WLA to them? What would you tell them to attract them to the school?
Something that I would definitely sell them to attract them to the school is obviously the academic rigor. Not only academic rigor, but how we're moving into AI. We've had different collaborations with multiple different companies, the biggest one being Microsoft, but it's prevalent that AI is our future. No matter how we put it, AI is going to be the future. It's what's to come. So if our school is teaching us about AI early, it gives us the opportunity as students to use it in the future, because after a while, there'll be certificates for it. There'll be degrees for it. It's going to be companies built only off of AI. So that's where money is. You come to high school to get into a college to what? Make money. So if you want to make money, you should come to the school. That's all.
Listen, as the young people say, what's that? That's T. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Vice Chair Salmon. You,
Board Member Yan.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam, for, I think, compelling all of us maybe for some career switches, I suppose. I'm going to switch directions a little bit and would love to talk about, on the financial side, your cash on hand. Obviously, you all have very healthy financials in place. Your cash on hand has grown pretty significantly as well over the last 5 years, from I think around like 240 days to close to 400 days in the subsequent financial memo that we got. Could you all just speak to your vision, strategy here? Are you all thinking about saving up for a capital expenditure? Is this concerns about, the city's budget? Just give me some of the rationale for the amount of cash that you all have right now.
I'm going to turn it over to Aria.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, certainly, the school has been very, very diligent around its finances, and obviously, there's concern around budget cuts every year and how the city is going to look at that, and we continue to evaluate that. We've been very judicious around our spend, but even in the last year, right? We've had some retention tax credits that came in as well. And just also looking at the long-term viability of the school and what we want to have potentially reserving some ability for us to have a permanent home if we so choose. So we're looking at a lot of options and being very strategic around how we want to continue to spend down those assets for the school.
That's helpful. Thank you.
I have a question about your quality school review. As you know, during a quality school review, the charter school board staff and consultants review assignments that are given to students to determine whether they're aligned with grade level standards. They rate each assignment as sufficient, minimal, or no opportunity to describe the opportunity students had to meaningfully practice and connect grade level content to the real world. I'm looking at your scores on the math assignments, the sample of 5 math assignments that the evaluators looked at. None of the 5 met the standard of sufficient in terms of alignment with grade level standards. 2 were rated as minimal, and 3 were rated as providing no opportunity to demonstrate meaningful practice connection with grade level content. What, if anything, are you doing to address that issue, the nature of the math assignments, and what can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. It's something that we acknowledged, and when we received that report, our principal and also our instructional coach for the math department took that data, sat down with the department team, and made changes. I think it was definitely a conversation that catapulted more investment in that 3-week cycle that we were talking about in coaching, and making sure that, again, the lessons were being aligned to standards and that they were actually being assessed to the standard. And so at this point, that instructional coach for the math department team has been continuing to support that math team, especially the ones that the assignments were submitted from, and that direct coaching has happened. But yeah, it was a jumpstart conversation, so to speak, from the report that we received from that QSR.
Thank you. Before I call for a motion, Sam, I thought I heard you say that you were a POSSE finalist.
Yes, that is correct. This year I was a POSSE finalist for Bucknell University.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I'm very familiar with the POSSE program. That's incredibly competitive. That's quite an accomplishment. Congratulations. With that, I'll call for a motion.
I move to continue the charter of Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter School.
Second.
Secretary Adamafanian, would you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Sandman.
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
Board Member Yan.
Aye.
Board Member Marino.
I have a proxy from Board Member Marino voting aye.
Board Member Crucy.
I have a proxy from Board Member Crucy voting aye.
And Vice Chair, I'm an aye as well.
The motion is unanimously approved to continue the charter of Washington Leadership Academy. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Good night. Could someone call Board Member Williams back into the room? Next, we have two presentations from the Public Charter School Board staff. I'll first invite Michelle Gray, a director in the School Performance Department, to introduce a presentation on oversight and intervention.
Hello, board. My name is Michelle Gray. I'm the director of the School Equity and Effectiveness Team, also referred to as the C Team. I'm joined by my colleagues, Senior Specialist Trisha Francisco and Nicole Kelly, formerly Keller, and Travis Hartberger, manager on the C Team. The aim of this presentation is to describe how C leverages its oversight as an intervention to support program effectiveness and improvement efforts. So we can jump into the next slide. DC PCSB's mission includes a statement about creating the policies and conditions empowering educators to do their best work in service of students. The School Equity and Effectiveness Team focuses in on that concept of co-conspiratorship as an embedded strategy to empower school leaders. Our approach to oversight requires us to keep student outcomes at the center of the work while examining the practices that inform quality programs in an authorizer environment. As we go to the next slide, I can go deeper into the goals of supportive oversight. In Washington, D.C., 50% of students, almost 50% of students, attend a charter school. As the sole authorizer in such a robust charter environment, it is crucial that we lean in to create those conditions that support school leaders do their best work in service of those students.
Prior to school year 23-24, our policies and protocols identified the compliance to a particular regulation or identified metric. On the left side of the slide, you can see some of the policies and the protocols that I'm referring to, and you've heard even today, some of the schools refer to these processes. But so for example, like if a school was audited under our special education audit and monitoring policy for disproportionate out-of-school suspension rates, for example, we would focus in, we would notify the school that they met the threshold for an audit. We would ask to see their policy to make sure it was compliant with the Fair Access to School Act, and any other policies that they had were legally compliant. This audit itself, and from school leaders' point of view, that they've communicated that that process seemed just like a gotcha. And it didn't really, but more importantly, we did not take the time to examine the conditions and the practices that inform those disproportionate outcomes. We know student outcomes is not like a lottery ticket, right? We know that outcomes are informed by the practices and the conditions that exist in our schools. What happens in the school building matters. So beginning in 22-23, we set about revising our policies and protocols to examine not just the outcomes, but the inputs and practices that inform school outcomes, so that our schools are accountable to provide. We hold schools accountable for taking action to iterate upon the practices to inform those outcomes. Supportive oversight does highlight the outcome, and we hold schools accountable for that, but we don't leave it there. We examine and support schools by identifying the practice or condition that may be causing this gap. So on the next slide, it goes into what that supportive approach will look like. So it starts with 3 steps. First, we alert the school of the specific data for their review. We provide space and time for school leaders to step back and think about the qualitative or quantitative data and what that means in their program. Second, school leaders engage in authentic reflection and respond and participate in things like the QSR debrief or an effective organization meeting to discuss whatever concerning data point that we've shared. Thirdly, we provide thought partnership and with school teams discuss and identify potential shifts or iteration, as well as locate and advocate for direct supports that could support the schools in these pivots and changes. We do this by analyzing responses and including recommendations in the final audit form or the QSR debrief that you'll hear more about, and talk through their practices or current conditions in the community that might be negatively impacting the outcomes that they want to see, and subsequently identify what they need to change and improve. Since changing our approach to a supportive thought partnership, we have seen improved outcomes for our students and families. On the next slide is my list of teammates and some of the policies and oversight practices they own that they will share with you. They will provide some specific examples about how these 3 parts of our supportive approach shows up in the oversight area. And the three parts I'm referring to is analyzing the data, the time and space for self-reflection, and identifying and advocating for supports. They will also share stories of impact that demonstrate how school leaders' expertise, relational trust, and growth mindset that is being cultivated in the sector. So first, I will pass it to Tricia Francisco, Senior Specialist, who will begin with a timely review of our oversight tool of the open enrollment policy, the mystery caller protocol.
Next slide, please. All right. Thank you, Michelle, and good evening, board members. I will be discussing the mystery caller protocol, and I want to acknowledge a minor but important name change. So previously, we called it Mystery Caller Initiative, but after hearing feedback from some school leaders that the term initiative implied an endpoint to the practice, we decided to call it Mystery Caller Protocol to explicitly state that it is a permanent part of our open enrollment policy. The monitoring is important because ensuring that schools provide a true open enrollment environment in a school choice sector is essential to creating a welcoming environment for families. The application process can impact the family's sense of belonging at a school, especially if their child has a specific learning need. This is why we conduct the mystery caller protocol. As part of the protocol, we pose as parents and advocates of student with disability or a multilingual learner. We inquire about the application process to proactively monitor if schools are discouraging families from applying to their school. And through these calls, we identify areas in need of improvement for schools' communication around the lottery and application process. The protocol provides schools with insight into how staff may be interacting with these groups of students and how they can ensure they're facilitating a welcoming environment for all families. And on the next slide, you'll see that in prior years, we used to contact schools if they failed both rounds of mystery caller. As of school year 23-24, all schools get a results email. For schools that pass, they learn about what went well, and an example of that is shown on the right. And for schools that fail the first round of calls, they receive specific feedback from us. They get resources to help address the possible barriers of open enrollment, and all schools receive sector trends. They get to learn what was the most common violations, and they see how they're compared to the sector. With these engagements, we're able to provide schools with actionable feedback that can inform their improvement. Next slide, please. For schools that failed both rounds of mystery caller, they participate in the design thinking workshop. During this workshop, they learn about the historical context of open enrollment. They dive into court cases that relate into civil rights for students with disabilities and multilingual learners. They connect these cases to the main theme of open enrollment, and they also have an opportunity to reflect on their own systems and iterate on their school's practices. These workshops have been very beneficial for schools. In fact, 97% of attendees agree that they improve their understanding of open enrollment regulations. 94% agree that they identified a strategy, an idea, or a tool to improve how they communicate with families. The workshop is a reminder that we need to serve all students, and it has also led a lot of schools to streamline their practices. A few schools have implemented a manual on do's and don'ts of open enrollment. One school has informed me they started conducting their own mystery caller, and other schools are tightening their language access systems. Next slide, please. Our targeted approach of providing feedback trends and hosting a design thinking workshop is associated with more inclusive enrollment practices across the sector. Only one school failed a mystery caller last year, and I'm happy to report that this year, no school failed the mystery caller protocol. I attribute this success to our work to provide schools feedback and creating a space for them to reflect on their own practices. I'll now pass it off to Nicole, who will discuss our special populations audit and monitoring process.
Thank you. Good evening. As you know, under the School Reform Act, DC PCSB is required to monitor charter schools' compliance with local and federal laws to ensure all students have equitable access to an education. The 4 buckets on this slide describe the structure of our engagement approach to compliance oversight, specifically our special education and emerging multilingual learner audit and monitoring policies. We approach our role in this sector by monitoring school data to improve program quality and ensure access to quality programs for all students. Our oversight practices include biannual data reviews and the use of other DC PCSB protocols and policies, such as the community complaints, qualitative site reviews, and the data and document submission policy, which align to our oversight of special populations across the sector. Once a gap is identified through our audit and monitoring policy, DCPCSB uses an analysis process that asks schools key questions and requests documentation related to their programs to identify potential systems or practices that may be affecting students' experiences. Through this supportive approach, we provide recommendations and collaborate on high-leverage practices to improve outcomes for students with disabilities and emerging multilingual learners. We try to have open, effective communication, providing schools opportunities to share and discuss their experiences. For example, we have held team-level effective organization meetings with school leaders to reflect upon systems related to audit triggers for student groups. Some of the work we've collaborated with schools around is thought partnering on family engagement strategies for mid-year withdrawals, discipline practices and suspension protocols related to out-of-school suspension rates, creating professional development that is aligned with schools' discipline policies, and making sure that these trainings are available to all staff in the building and not just special education or multilingual learner teachers. We also ask schools to reflect on timeliness and schedules to reduce once and done PDs and encourage important topics be repeated throughout the year. We also hold professional learning communities and partner with OSSI to recommend strategic PD offerings. Finally, DCPCSB monitors sustained improvements and shares with schools their results over time. I will highlight some of these examples on the next slide. When making audit decisions for schools' emerging multilingual learner population, we consider local context and factors affecting our city. This is especially important in our oversight of mid-year withdrawals, as the population is directly impacted by the city's increased presence of ICE. We have adjusted our practices to provide schools with an optional space to share factors influencing mid-year withdrawals, allowing us to identify opportunities to advocate for additional resources. Given this current environment, we are focusing on access growth rates. In school year 23-24, 10 campuses were audited because fewer than 25% of multilingual learners met access growth targets in the prior school year. By 24-25, 6 of those 10 campuses previously audited surpassed the 25% threshold and no longer met the audit criteria. All 6 campuses had over 40% of multilingual learners meet access growth targets, with 3 of them exceeding 60%. Meeting access growth targets highlights progress in English language proficiency, helping ensure students can fully engage with the curriculum. Under our special education audit and monitoring policy, we also consider both the city's context and programmatic factors. Our goal is to interrogate those factors that could lead students with disabilities having different experiences than their non-disabled peers. For example, our audit criteria includes disproportionate mid-year withdrawal rates, out-of-school suspension rates, or significantly low special education qualitative site review scores. I've chosen to highlight one example from our audit analysis process over the past 2 years on disproportionate out-of-school suspension rates, or OSS rates as I will refer to them moving forward. The chart you see demonstrates the impact of this analysis. In school year 23-24, we completed a total of 24 audits. 12 audits were completed in the middle of the year, and 9 of those 12 schools received an audit for OSS rates 3 times higher for students with disabilities than their general education peers. Of those 9 schools, 7 reduced their disproportionality and no longer met the criteria for an audit by the end of the school year. In school year 24-25, we completed a total of 16 audits in the middle of the year. 8 were completed, and 7 of those were for disproportionate out-of-school suspension rates for students with disabilities. Of those 7 schools, 5 reduced their disproportionality and no longer met the criteria for an audit by the end of the year. This analysis is important because we found a direct correlation between student academic outcomes and OSS rates. In school year 23-24, 72% of charter schools that decreased OSS rates for students with disabilities also increased in ELA proficiency with students with disabilities. In school year 23-24, compared to school year 24-25, 79% of charter schools that decreased OSS rates of students with disabilities also increased in ELA proficiency. Providing schools targeted recommendations based on student data monitoring consequences, and sharing results with school leaders results in students having a more equitable experience in the sector and improved student outcomes. And now my colleague Travis Hartberger will discuss the QSR and assignment review.
Good evening, board members. The Quality of Site Review, or QSR, as I'll refer to it moving forward, has three parts. First, we observe 75% of a school's core classrooms. That includes ELA, math, science, and social studies. We also observe the school's implementation of special education and multilingual learner instruction. And lastly, we review students' opportunity to meaningfully engage with grade level ELA and math content. So what is the assignment review? Well, the assignment review is one of those three components of the QSR, and it looks at the school's instruction quality through the lens of student work. The goal is to determine the opportunity that tasks provide students to meaningfully engage in worthwhile grade level content. So why do we do this? The assignment review's purpose is in the QSR is directly informed by the New Teacher Project, or TNTP's findings from the opportunity myth. TNTP found that students from underserved communities were less likely to be given the opportunity to engage in practice with grade level material. Subsequently, student performance was lower for students within these communities because they were not taught the material in which they were being tested. DC PCSB reviews assignments to determine the extent to which all students have equitable access to grade level standards. Next slide. Our shift in the QSR debrief process centered trust and relationships to empower school leaders. This allowed them to provide feedback about how we can use the assignment review to support their school improvement. This graphic shows three ways we've enhanced the QSR debrief to empower school leaders' instructional leadership. In school year, starting in school year 22-23, the debrief was a read aloud of the school's QSR report. School leaders received overall averages 1 hour before the debrief, but had no access to the report at the time of the debrief. As an instructional leader, I wondered about this approach, given my observations of how it engaged or didn't engage them. The next year, in school year 23-24, I created a note catcher for school leaders to have guided space to follow along without significantly changing the process. I also increased the process time, sending the overall QSR findings to them 24 hours in advance of the debrief. This past school year, in school year 24-25, we redesigned the QSR debrief to create a supportive approach and better align with our mission to empower educators. This includes a slide deck with a aligned participant document that provides key data and reflection questions that foster discussion with and amongst each school's instructional leadership team. Additionally, we curated resources that highlight aligned to the school's needs. Next slide. After each QSR cycle, we ask school leaders to provide feedback on the QSR process. And over the past 3 years, starting with school year 22-23, an increasing number of charter school leaders agreed with the statement, the QSR debrief supports my ability to process and make sense of QSR findings. For example, in school year 23-24, 85.7% of charter school leaders agreed, and in school year 24-25, 100% of charter school leaders agree with this statement. This indicated that the QSR debrief increased school leaders' understanding of the QSR results and empowered them to use the findings in their school improvement work going forward. To do this, our mission drove our practice to empower charter school leaders. Specifically, the QSR debrief process shifts charter school leaders from recipients to collaborators and allowed them to engage more deeply with their data. These shifts also led to providing school leaders with an additional opportunity to engage with the assignment review. The additional assignment review helped provide a supportive approach by offering school leaders with a deep dive of their school's work samples, a discussion of possible shifts they could make, and an additional round of review and feedback. So what impact did these changes have on school leaders? As a result, 100% of the schools that volunteered to participate in additional assignment review in this past school year's 25-26. We believe this additional touch point provided LEA leaders with a deeper understanding of the assignment review and a sustained development of rigorous, relevant grade level work for their students. For a story of impact, I'll share an excerpt from an email from one of our school's leaders. Quote, on behalf of the school's team, I look forward to the continued collaboration with the opportunity to learn from your feedback more than just one time in this non-evaluative way. I do believe our instructional model will elevate as we implement the feedback from today and use it to tailor our PD plans or professional development and teacher coaching. Additionally, I believe this opportunity to collaborate with you allows us to surface questions around the protocol and our specific school model. And now I will allow Michelle Gray to further discuss our relational impact.
What we have here is a word cloud that I took from some emails that we have exchanged and gotten back from school leaders. We have DC Public Charter School Board has a big responsibility to hold schools accountable for student outcomes and deliver on the promises that they engaged in when they decided to start and run a charter school in DC. And we know that there are practices and things that inform those outcomes. And when we interact with school leaders through this supportive approach, these are the kinds of words that are coming up in those emails. And I put those things together with the accountability because it is a balance, right, between being understanding and supportive, but also we know people respect what you inspect and we have to hold schools accountable. And school leaders have really leaned into the iterative process and the thought partnership. And you can see words like progress and thanks and school, commitment and improvement that are showing up over and over again in these conversations. And so this language reinforces our goal of empowering school leaders and being co-conspirators with our school leaders to drive sustained improvement for our school experiences of our students and families. One of the highlights of this work has been the growing relationship between staff and school leaders. And as a former school leader, this is something that I wish was available to me as a school leader, as well as the growing partnership with OSSI's Office of Teaching and Learning and advocacy and support groups such as the Special Education Co-op. We meet regularly so we can align what the sector needs with the professional learning opportunities that they provide. And so at the next slide, I just want to just give a quick overview of the timing where these things will show up. We do special population audits in the middle of the year, around the end of February, in March, early March, and then of the end of the year when we look at the complete school year. And qualitative site reviews are typically done the year before a school's review or renewal year. But as Travis talked about, sometimes they opt into these off cycles, or we suggest that they do an off cycle as well. And mystery caller, I said that it was timely because the lottery just closed and our mystery caller protocol aligns with the lottery process. So thank you for your time. My teammates and I are available for any questions you may have.
Board members, questions? Board Member Williams.
Thank you all for that presentation, and just really incredible results. So congratulations on just all the ways that you guys are continuing to support our charter schools and sector. You guys described all of this as an evolution and as an approach, and so I think talk to me a little bit about I think Travis in his presentation talked a little bit about how he approached it, but overall, how did you guys approach and get that input from schools? And then how does that continue on from here? Like, how do we continue to evolve this and move this forward?
Well, when I mentioned I was a former school leader, I've just celebrated 30 years in education this past summer, and I've been a school leader in DC. And when I came to the DC Public Charter School Board, one of the first things I looked at were the policies, and we started thinking about how can we, if our mission says we are empowering school leaders to do their best work, what does that look like in terms of oversight? So we shifted, we included the words action. We're making sure that schools take action, and that's where we started. So then what is it, we talk about the fuel for our strategic plan. What does it look like in our email communications? What does our initial email outreach look like to both hold schools accountable and get them to do honest reflection about where their practices are? And we started that first year. And given how schools, it was a change. And so we knew we had to massage, do some change in management to then get them, the school leaders, the ability to actually be vulnerable with us, to really keep it real with their data and their program so we can have these conversations. And then every year we, using equity by design protocol, we do step backs at the end of every year where we analyze our processes and keeping our goals in mind. And then we iterate on our, just like we ask school leaders to do, we iterate on our processes with step backs at the end of every year.
One, you guys also mentioned and talked about just implementing with these schools these high leverage practices and then the inputs they have. Are those high leverage practices shared broadly across the sector? Or are they unique to one school, or are they things that as we broadly look to make sure that the sector is moving, improving, are those lessons that may make sense to be shared more broadly in terms of this as high leverage practices?
I think there are high leverage practices that we have. I think the key part is those conversations that we have with schools, because as an authorizer, we are not going to tell them this is what you need to do. But what we can do is say, looks like these are gaps. Talk to me more about what your practices are that inform that. And then we can have a conversation about what they could do to iterate. Their life cycle of a school and like the cadence of a school moves fast. And because we're taking this time to solely look at their data in terms of the debrief and other touch points, we're able to have more of a conversation and also align the professional development around those practices. I don't know if, Tricia, you want to say more because you also manage our PLCs. So.
Yeah, so we have professional learning communities for special education and emerging multilingual learner leaders and teachers. They meet quarterly, and how it works is usually I partner with a school, they share their best practices, and after we go through what their practices are, school leaders have the chance to collaborate, brainstorm, and kind of just talk about what's going on at their school and kind of pick each other's brain on like, well, what if I do this? What if I do that? I also provide them a lot of resources that they can kind of look at and see, can this apply to my context? If so, how can I use it, or how should I modify it so that I can further iterate the systems at my own school?
Just last question. It seems like, obviously some of this is implemented as someone's approaching a renewal cycle or review cycle, but some of it is triggered by their performance. How does the proposed gap year impact that?
I can get us started, and then I see if Nicole and Travis can join in. Yes, we do twice a year. We try to do proactive oversight. So we try to look at the key data points that might give us some insight about what's happening in the school. And so our audit and monitoring processes are proactive, but there is this year in between the QSRs given the year before the review. So Nicole, I will say if you want to chime in about like what does that the gap look like and how you support the identification of those gaps, and then Travis, you can talk about the
Nicole, before you answer, I think what Board Member Williams was asking about is the grace and acclimation period that the staff have proposed for Aspire. Much of the work that this team oversees and supports and monitors will not be affected primarily by the grace and acclimation period, because that is related to the standardized assessment and in particular the growth. And so they are looking at data around how special ed disproportionate data for students with disabilities compared to general ed students on a number of factors, including proficiency and growth, but there are other factors that they're monitoring as well. So much of that work will continue in a routine way. And the adjustments that we're proposing for those particular measures for all schools will also apply to some degree to their work. With respect to the QSR work, that will still continue ahead of a school's review. Again, that effort is looking at qualitative activity in the school, and so that can continue with very few modifications, if any. And then we are also looking at, with the data that we have available to us, what, if any, modifications they may have to make to their audit protocols. But in general, most of that work will be able to continue without interruption.
And we were, most our work will continue, but one of the things we wanted to highlight is how much our practices of our oversight and the outcomes, the connection to academic outcomes as well. And so, yes, we're looking at climate data, but we see how the climate data is connected to proficiency rates. And we see that the practices that are happening in the QSR a year prior, we see that with the additional QSR feedback, because that's what the qualitative site review is. It's with that feedback, the more times that schools interact with that process, we've seen an increase in their academic outcomes. Thank you, Vice Chair Statement. I'm interested in the assignment review. The statistic that you all provided for us and that's quoted in this opportunity myth, that's new to me, and I read it and was jarred by it. So talk to me about what that assignment review looks like. I'm assuming that the way you're determining that LEAs are using curriculum that isn't on the grade level, I'm assuming there's some standard that we're applying, or what, like, what's the, how do you determine that is happening in a classroom? And then how are we supporting LEAs that have that finding? I had never seen this statistic, and it's jarring. For a child in this system, it's jarring.
So to your question about process, the assignment review has 3 parts. The first part is content, and it's looking at grade level standards. So that first bucket is looking to see, does the task meet the grade level standard that it's designed to? The second piece is at practice. So if it's a math task, it's looking to see, does the access to the mathematical practice in the assignment also reach the depth of the standard? And then the third part is about relevance, and that's about real world connections. So do students have opportunity in that task to do a novel problem and apply the content to the real world? That's the first part of the question. Is there a second part?
So the first part you said is that you said it's, let me ask you this way. There's some way that you all are determining that work is not at grade level. That's some standard. That's a universal standard that, talk to me about that piece, because somehow you're identifying that this isn't getting at what it's supposed to get at.
Correct. Yeah. So the New Teacher Project did develop an assignment review protocol.
Okay.
The framework that we use is in conjunction with theirs. It's literally an extension of that. So
Okay.
There's a protocol specific to math tasks, and then there's another one specific to English language arts as well.
Okay. And then the last piece that you said is it essentially evaluates whether or not students are given opportunity to work, I guess, with the data in a real way. Elaborate on that for me a little bit, because that goes beyond like answering a question on a page. It sounds like it goes beyond that.
Yeah. So in rubric form, each of those 3 areas, content, practice, and relevance, get 2 points. Mm-hmm. So 2, 2, 2, mm-hmm. adds to 6. For an assignment to be deemed sufficient opportunity for students, it has to have 4 points. And so to go back to that, each of those 3 areas would get 2 points to build up to the total of 6. And I think I'm forgetting the last part of your question.
Yeah, that's okay. You said content, practice. What was the last one?
Relevance. Relevance. Okay, so that's what I want to hear about. So what does that look like in practice?
So it's different for ELA. So for ELA, it could look something like, do students have an opportunity to explain their own thinking with regard to the text and the text-based questions? Do they have opportunity to discuss with their peers? So that can look a couple different ways. For math, it's is it a word problem or is it a problem that's novel and allows them to apply the content to a real world scenario?
Okay, interesting. When we find that within LEA, how do we support them? Are we helping them with curriculum, or what does the support look like in that area for them to improve?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think back to Board Member Williams' point about evolution.
Yep.
So originally, I thought percentages would help school leaders if they just knew the percentage of their assignments that offered opportunity. I found from feedback from school leaders that was more jarring to them than it was disarming them to think about the real root cause. So we started to disaggregate by each of those three areas to see like where is the strength, where is the opportunity to grow, and then engage them in a conversation about what do you think we can do to make a shift. So it opens the door for like curricular conversations, like what is your curricular resource? Sometimes schools will say this is our first year implementing that. So it opens up the door to have a conversation and then to problem solve. It also, through the partnership with TNTP, offers additional resources. There's a really fascinating one that the quote that I shared, we shared a access point to intellectual preparation and how the school could use this protocol around that to think about how we can offer more rigorous real world connections to the work.
Interesting. To clarify, often you made a statement about substandard curriculum. Often it's not the curriculum itself. It is the way that whatever process, that intellectual preparation, the lesson planning, what is the most important part of that particular lesson. It is how teachers and instructional coaches are using that curriculum and ensuring they are teaching to the depth of the rigor of that particular grade level. And so they might be using a high quality curriculum, but teachers may not be implementing it in such a way that they are asked to do the depth of the standard. A lot of times they'll like either over support or just get to a lower depth of the standard, like below grade level. So it won't really get at to the 7th grade particular standard and what that's supposed to look like. So it's really about how to use that curriculum and how to unpack standards to understand what is this really asking kids to know how to do. And we can have those conversations with school leaders and make sure that one, they do have a curriculum that they can use, but also thinking about iterating on their process for lesson planning. It goes back to thinking about those practices that inform those outcomes. The practices, but then also that it's hitting on like those 3 things that you mentioned, right? That's something that you wouldn't think, right? That you can have a body of curriculum that is for, let's say, 3rd grade or let's say 5th grade, and that curriculum can be taught in such a way that it still is not having the kids such that they're studying it on a 5th grade level, that it's difficult to reconcile that. That's all in classroom instruction. All tier 1 instruction. Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I just want to pull on this thread a little bit more and just understand where the role of PCSB stops when we think about support and where the role of other organization picks up, because we have a lot of education support organizations in the district. And so even on this line of, we're implementing new curriculum, it's the first year of implementation, and through the QSR, we're seeing some concerning results. Where do we feel like the PCSB engagement should stop, and engagement from other orgs should pick up.
I'll take a start with that and then ask the C team to continue. I think it's important that you heard the word supportive, reflective, partner, thought partner throughout the presentation, because it isn't our role to tell schools what curriculum to buy, what instructional approaches to take. And we trust that they have a plan and they know what they're doing. And sometimes they just need the mirror, they need the data in front of them to be able to reflect. And so I think it's important that we are very conscious of what that line is. We work with the other partners in our ecosystem to provide those supports. I think very often schools may know that partners exist, but they may not necessarily have the time to reflect on what specific partner is right for what specific problem. And the activities that the C team does helps bring those things together, right? So yes, there is data and is a very comprehensive approach, but it's not just data for data's sake. Those debriefs are important to be able to connect the dots, and the reflection and the conversation sometimes actually is the light bulb for schools to go, oh yeah, I thought about using this particular resource, but now I have a real solid idea of how to use this resource and can actually invest time and money in using this resource because I have a plan, essentially. So we think about this as maybe not the first time that the school is having a conversation, but certainly a way that they can connect the dots. And Michelle Gray talked about it. Very often, schools' interactions with PCSB are about the accountability side of the house, where we're facing some challenging outcomes and we have to do something about it, and it is more a consequence. And I think this conversation is about, yes, we see some data, but how can we have a supportive and reflective conversation and give you, school, the tools to do what schools do. When given the tools, they will use those tools and reflect and make it fit the context that they're operating in. So if I think about Board Member Williams' questions, yes, we do know that there are key leverage practices. We know that there are best practices in education across the board, but not every practice is going to fit every school at that particular time. And that's where this team helps to connect those dots. But yes, there is a bright line for us. We don't want to find ourselves in a position where we're saying, you do this thing, A, B, C, D, and it doesn't work for a school because they have to internalize it. It has to have meaning for that school community.
I have a question about the mystery caller program. My understanding is that the mystery caller protocol is intended to simulate the experience of a parent, a guardian calling a school because they have a student with disabilities or they have a student who is an emerging multilingual learner, and to see how the school responds. Do you give notice to the schools before you begin the mystery caller program that it's coming?
So schools receive one email a few weeks before it starts. And in that email, we send, this year, we sent a guidance document talking about what the process is to create more transparency, because a lot of schools have mentioned there's not a lot of transparency around the protocol. So they do get an announcement, only one, and it happens weeks before we start actually making calls.
My understanding is that a school is determined to have failed the mystery caller protocol only if 2 calls result in inadequate or misleading or discouraging information. Is that correct?
Yes, we only call twice.
What happens after the first time? Are they told that they flunked the first time?
No, schools don't have any information. All of the results happen at the end of the mystery caller protocol. So they get all the results once the lottery ends. No one knows during if they've passed or failed round 1.
So the school, all of the schools that got the calls are notified only after you've completed the follow-up second calls for the schools that didn't pass the first time.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. My concern, I've expressed this before, is if I ruled the world, I wouldn't give any notice. And I say that for 2 reasons. One, the parent calling doesn't call in advance to say, I'm going to be calling you next week, just want to be sure that you're prepared. That's not a simulation of a real world experience. If we were really trying to imitate what happens in real life, we wouldn't give notice. And second, I don't think it's unfair because when I look at programs that I consider to be comparable, like when Channel 9's I-Team, visits a hotel to see, how unsanitary the mattresses are. They don't call in advance. They just show up. The best practice of mystery shopper, mystery caller protocols is to just do it. So I understand the desires of the school to have notice, but it doesn't strike me as at all unfair because the parents are not, the guardians making the calls are not functioning that way. So I just encourage you to continue to think about whether it should be made as realistic as possible. I think we owe that to the families making the calls. It's not a question, it's a statement.
I appreciate the perspective. I really do. I think your perspective is important to simulate a real call, but I think the whole approach in mystery caller protocol and in our team stance into have a supportive approach is to give them that notice ahead of time so that then they're prepared, because you never know when a parent is going to call, and I hope that they already have these resources ahead of time. But for me, it's more of a supportive approach to give them that heads up so that they know, regardless of mystery caller, you should be prepared in general because it's the lottery. Parents are going to call. You should be preparing your staff.
I would also say that we make sure that we have the mystery caller protocol during the lottery, once the lottery is open. So it could be us, it could be an actual parent, because that's when a lot of parents call. And I think that when we think about what experience we want to have, want our families to have, we want to increase the opportunity, the likelihood that they're going to have a positive, welcoming experience. And so we want to give them a heads up because it might be us calling, but it might be a family. And if we give them a reminder, hey, this is the lottery, it's open, you can go and apply. We want to make sure that that school is prepared for anyone to call and get a positive, welcoming experience. And we also know there's a lot of turnover rate, particularly not just teachers, but also front desk staff. And we want to remind school leaders to do that professional development. So anyone who picks up that phone will give a welcoming experience to whoever is on the other end of that phone call.
Well, that's very helpful. I hadn't thought of that. So there is an advantage to giving notice because every time they answer the phone, they think this could be the DC Public Charter School Board testing us, which gives them an incentive to do really well because they want to pass the test. But it turns out it wasn't a test. It was a real parent. I never thought of that. Thank you. I learned something. Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions from anyone? I'll now invite Teresa Kemp and Jay Brianna Smith from our External Affairs Department for a presentation on our community complaint process.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Good. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to share an overview of DCPCSB's community complaint process. We're going to get into introductions in a minute, but I want to sort of frame what we're going to talk about today. Community complaints are one of the many ways families, students, and staff communicate concerns about what's happening inside our schools. While many issues are resolved directly at the school level, complaints also provide important insight into potential patterns, health and safety concerns, and areas where additional oversight may be necessary. Tonight, we will walk through how families reach out to us, how DCPCSB reviews and categorizes concerns, and how complaint data helps inform our monitoring and oversight of charter schools. Next slide, please. Just so you know who you're speaking with tonight, my name is Teresa Kemp. I am a specialist on the External Affairs team. I was previously on the team that just presented, the C team, where I was a senior specialist for 5 years. And now I am beginning my transition from PCSB. However, we have a wonderful new staff member who's joining us, who will take over the work. Rest assured, we have done many months of preparation and transition planning to ensure that this process does not see any gaps at all. Okay, so I'll give you an opportunity to meet one of our newest staff members.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jay Brianna Smith, and I am privileged to be the new Community Engagement Specialist here at DCPCSB. I bring over 15 years of experience in education as a former school leader, principal, assistant principal, dean of students, and I'm also a mom. And I believe that those attributes play heavily into why I do this work. And so now, being based here in Washington, D.C., I take that experience and I bring it to the everyday work of listening to students and families. So I'm really excited to dive into this process with you all this evening.
Next slide, please. Okay, so what is the goal of the community complaint process? The goal of the community complaint process is to support schools in resolving routine concerns independently whenever possible. I want to highlight, underline, and really emphasize independence here. Families are encouraged to work directly with school leadership first, since schools are best positioned to address day-to-day issues. DCPCSB does not adjudicate individual disputes between families and schools. Instead, we facilitate communication and monitor complaints for patterns, compliance concerns, and potential health and safety issues. This process helps ensure that individual concerns are addressed while also informing DCPCSB's broader oversight of schools. Next slide.
And so before we walk through the complaint process, it is very important to clarify DCPCSB's engagement in the complaint process. We serve as the authorizer and the oversight body for public charter schools in the district, and that means that we monitor schools for compliance with their charter agreements, laws, and policies. When complaints come to us, they help to inform our oversight responsibilities, particularly when we are identifying potential patterns or compliance concerns. It's also important to note that DCPCSB does not adjudicate individual disputes, as my colleague just mentioned, between families and schools. Other agencies also play different roles in this process. For example, OSSI oversees statewide requirements with emphasis on special education when it comes to our work, and the State Board of Education handles certain student discipline appeals and state-level education policy matters. The SBOE's Ombudsman's Office also serves as a resource for mediation and guidance between families and schools. And I think it is extremely important to note again here that individual charter school boards remain responsible for governance and day-to-day management of their schools. Next slide, please. And so to ensure transparency, DCPCSB maintains a formal community complaint policy, which is publicly available on our website. And the policy outlines how complaints can be submitted, how they are reviewed, and how they inform our oversight work. It also clarifies expectations for the process, and in most cases, families are encouraged to first work directly with their school, since schools are best positioned to address the operational concerns. Our role is to track and review complaints within the scope of our authorizing responsibilities, particularly when concerns may indicate broader compliance or oversight issues. Next slide, please. Families typically contact DCPCSB through our community complaints hotline or by email, and they often reach out when they believe that there is an issue that has not been resolved at the school level, or when they want to ensure that a concern is documented with us, the authorizer. The topics vary and may include academic concerns, bullying, discipline issues, enrollment questions, health and safety issues, special education services, transportation, or school policies.
Tracking these contacts helps us to better understand family experiences and potential trends across schools. DCPCSB, we review complaints after a family has first attempted to resolve the issue through the school's grievance process. Our role is to facilitate oversight and, again, not to adjudicate individual disputes. Staff review the complaint, request information from the school, and assess whether the issue indicates policy violations, health and safety concerns, or, again, broader compliance issues. Depending on the findings, we may take additional steps such as monitoring, requesting information, conducting audits, or escalating concerns to the board. These trends also help to inform ongoing oversight and monitoring of schools over time. Now, once we have made contact with the complainant, we categorize it so that we can respond appropriately. And so we generally group these communications into 3 categories. First are our complaints, which are formal allegations that require review and response. Second are concerns, which are informal issues or questions that may not require escalation. Third are inquiries, where families are simply seeking information or guidance rather than reporting a specific problem. This process helps us to prioritize formal complaints while still supporting families who are looking for information or assistance.
So I want to go over a little bit of data for the past 2 years. School year 24-25 was the last complete school year. We had a total of 115 complaints logged here at PCSB. Our largest category, and it is every year, is healthy and safety complaints. I don't think that's probably any shock to anyone. And next behind that would be bullying and student discipline issues. And in third would be special education complaints, which is about 15% of our complaints that we receive here at DCPCSB. Take a moment just to take a look at the pie chart and digest some of that data. Next slide, please. School year 25-26, we are well underway. However, we've only logged 55 total complaints, and we're in March. So we are on a downward trend, which is really good. So for us on this team, we believe that we're doing the work. We're doing the work of ensuring that families know who to reach out to at the school level. Families often are repeat callers, is what I like to say, and those families know now who to reach out to directly at the school level so that we can bring some of these overall calls down. Again, this year, the category that's leading is health and safety, with almost 50% of our complaints being in the health and safety category. And a strong second would be, I think it's bullying and discipline again. Yep. So take a moment to digest that as well.
I have a question. The category health and safety. How much is health? How much is safety?
Yeah, great question. I would say if just knowing the data and how we digest this data, a lot of it has to do with safety. So I'd say that, 40% of that is safety. So that would mean like coming to school, safe passage, family members feeling like their students are not safe in a day-to-day basis, whether that's like they feel that a staff member may be saying unsafe words to them or things like that. So I'd say majority of that category is safety. Health would be more like, like illnesses or sicknesses in the school, which we get complaints about that at times.
And Teresa or Jay Brianna, can you clarify when you talk about the number of complaints? This is before you categorize it as a complaint, concern, or inquiry, right? This is all intake.
Yes,
Okay,
this is all
thank you.
intake. Thank you for that question. Great. Next slide, please. Okay, so what happens next? After DCPCSB logs a complaint, We have to first recognize that most complaints are resolved at the school level after communication between family members and leaderships initiate. A lot of times during that inquiry phase, folks just want to know who to reach out to at the school. So once they make that contact, we don't normally hear from them again. However, there are times that DCPCSB may take additional steps when concerns suggest something more serious or systemic. Escalation may occur if there is a serious health or safety concern, a pattern of similar complaints, or if the school is non-responsive to the request for more information. We may escalate when a school does not demonstrate a good faith effort to address the concern as well. In these situations, DCPCSB may move forward with formal oversight actions, which are outlined in the next slide.
And so when we find that a complaint needs to be escalated because the school either did not respond or because of signs pointing to a serious systemic issue, we may take additional oversight actions, which may include but are not limited to an early warning or out of compliance notice, requesting documentation through a desk audit, conducting unannounced visits. And in some cases, staff may also conduct an on-site audit or convene an EOM or an effective organization meeting with school leadership to address concerns. If systemic issues persist, the board itself may issue a notice of concern, which requires corrective action from the school. And these escalation tools allow complaint data to translate into meaningful oversight when necessary.
So we've got to the Q&A portion of our presentation. We want to open the floor to any board members that may have some questions about our presentation.
Ms. Secretary Adamafania.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa and Jay Michelle. Jay Brianna. Thank you very much. A couple questions for you all. So thank you for providing the pie chart with respect to the types of complaints that are given. Can you talk to us a little bit about, one, looking as you analyze the various reasons why families reach out, how does that information and those sort of common concerns, how does that, when you think about the supportive aspect of authorizing it, how does that show up with respect to giving information back to schools? How does that inform policies? How does that even make you all think about our own policies or what our requirements are?
I can take that. So we often look at the data. We do send out monthly reports and quarterly reports, end of the year reports to schools and to internal staff. And often what it looks like is if there is a category that has a trend or, there's an area that we notice at a specific school, we will reach out to maybe the school performance department or the finance team or, just whatever team it may be appropriate to reach out to share our findings. And then if necessary, meet with the team and start that sort of escalation procedure, meet with the school team, understand more, gather some more information, and then provide supports within either the EOM meeting or if we do have to take more corrective actions like an audit. So we try to use the data to inform practice on a regular basis. Hopefully I answered your question.
I guess I'm wondering, in the previous presentation, we talked about how there are learnings that and spaces that are created for schools to kind of talk to one another and share best practices. Mm-hmm. That is my question. Yep. You all see common complaints, it's happening. How do you then either bring the concerns to the entire sector and have them learn from each other? Like how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's making me think that maybe there's an opportunity for us to create a new POC or a new PLC around community complaints. We don't have a formal space for that, but I just immediately thought to myself, well, maybe that's something that we need to think about. We do have these spaces like the special education PLC. I know at one point there was like an operations PLC as well, where a lot of these concerns were brought up in those spaces where school leaders came together and they talked about those issues and figured out ways to address them, mitigate them.
If I may, Chair, Teresa is underselling herself because a lot of the conversations and triage that she has with schools actually creates an opportunity for them to reflect on their communication practices with their school community, missed opportunities in terms of how they manage their response to parents, maybe something that the school may have thought was handled and handled appropriately if they didn't realize that parents or parent communities were reaching out to PCSB. And so I do think that just the call and managing the community complaint process does provide an opportunity for reflection for schools. And at the initial intake, or at least after several phone conversations, that's not at a point of a consequence, but it is an opportunity to have a real conversation about what's going on. Maybe sometimes what's revealed in there is the school does have a policy, but it's not really clear, or they haven't shared that recently with their school community. So I do think that that initial process itself does provide some opportunity for that. And then both Teresa and Jamiana talked about the ways that they can connect with other departments within PCSB where sometimes because of a call, they're able to go and say, well, we got a call about this and this at this particular school. Are you seeing that in the data with, for example, our C team? Are you seeing some troubling trends there that might speak to that? So there's both formal, but also lots of informal opportunities for that kind of, feedback and support.
And there is, and last question, then I have my last question in series. So Dr. Walker Davis, thank you for that. I think the taking it to the next step is how does this information kind of, again, float back into the sector? Like, hey, we're getting a lot of, for example, a lot of health and safety concerns out here. We create some sort of, is there a space, or I hear you saying that you want to create more formal space, okay, for that. But just wondering, how do we get the information back to the sector?
Yeah, schools receive at the end of every school year what's called an end of the year summary. They also receive a mid-year summary as well, where they understand where their complaints, what categories their complaints fell in. In the previous school year, we asked schools a question, and the question was, how has, seeing this report, how have you improved your practice, or how have you changed your practice? Just after reviewing this data. And school leaders, often it was EDs, responded directly back to me and said, we met with our data teams, or we met with our whoever teams, whatever team at the school level, and we have changed this policy in our handbook as a direct result from the data you shared with us at the end of the school year.
Got it. Thank you so much. Last question here. I appreciate the presentation and the work that you all have put into it. It's a very robust process. I'm talking as a mom to a 6-year-old, and I'm having an issue at school. Can you just give me like the sticky sentence? What do I need to remember about what to expect from the Public Charter School Board? I just think we have an opportunity to educate the public, and it will be really helpful. Real sticky. Yes. Give me your pitch, like Sam. Yeah. Our mom here is going to answer that. Got you. Thank you for your question. I think the first and most important thing to note is that, one, we are here to support. And when we hear like we facilitate, we don't adjudicate, that may tell a parent that we don't want to hear their concerns, and we do. We want to hear them out. We want to support them. And we provide the resources to be able to make sure that they get that support, right? Whether it be directing them to OSSI or the Ombudsman's office, or whether it be educating them on the school's internal policies. Because many times when I feel calls, especially with me being new, they just don't know where to go. They just want someone to speak to. And so I want folks to know that our office exists to support families by not just hearing their concern, but being able to educate them on their school's policies, on who governs their boards, because many folks don't understand that. And we're happy to educate them on that. Who oversees the day-to-day administration of the school, as well as what outside facilities we can connect them with to make sure that their voices are heard. Thank you. Thank you. I just think that's super important for our families who are listening out there, just to know exactly what they can expect when they reach out to us. So thank you.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank the staff for the presentation. Thank you. I think I was the one that asked for it, and so thank you for presenting the information. I think it's timely, not only because of my request, but also because of some of the things that came out at our recent oversight hearing. Community complaints was one of the things that was raised. So thank you for a very thoughtful presentation. That's number one. I have just two quick questions for you. Under the de-aggregating complaints slide, I just want to clarify when you say formal allegation requiring review and response, informal issues, these responses, whether it's a complaint, concern, or inquiry, the responses that you're talking about is from the LEA, not from PCSB, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. So I want to make that clear. And then the other piece for staff and Dr. Walker Davis, you as well, when we're talking about escalations, in any circumstance, could escalation include an off-cycle review? I'm thinking of a situation in specific.
Thanks for the question, Treasurer Stanley Beatty. So I would say one complaint would not likely trigger that, but if we do see consistent complaints, a pattern, some of the pieces that the team spoke to where it is a repeated violation of the school's own policy, it is a heightened concern around health and safety, then that would, and we have had a incident in the past where community complaints led us to do some further inquiry, and the data that we found in that further inquiry led to the out-of-cycle review.
Right. So I think that's really important. I like Board Member Adamafania here, we facilitate, we don't adjudicate, and that can turn a parent off. And so I want to make it clear that in certain circumstances, obviously that wouldn't be the norm, but in circumstances where something does need to be elevated, that elevation could be up to and including an off-cycle review. And then the last piece, I'm glad that you talked about how we educate parents in this process of facilitating them back to the LEA or facilitating them getting to the answer that they need. You use the term educate. I would also use the term empower. I'm happy to hear that we're empowering parents because oftentimes, like you said, it's just that they don't know where to go. They don't know who the appropriate person is to hear their complaint. And so it sounds like you all are educating and empowering parents, which means something to parents. And then the last thing I would just say is for all of us as board members, I know I've received community complaints. So this was really important to me to understand that there is a process in place, that you all do have staff dedicated to this process, and that, like I said, it is not a, well, hey, we can't help you, you got to go back to the school, but the process is meant to educate and empower. And so I think that's very important for the community and for the sector to understand.
I have a question following up on a question that Secretary Adamafanian asked. She inquired about what schools get back, and you mentioned an end of school year report. Does that report go to the individual school about complaints received about that school, or is there a broader report that goes to all of the public charter schools about the texture of the complaints you've received over the course of the year?
Yep, it goes to the individual school and their board. So we don't have like a, you know, sort of like a newsletter or something I'm kind of trying to think of, but it goes to individuals, EDs, and the entire school board is able to review that.
Would there be any value in issuing a report just to all of the public charter schools? Here's just a snapshot of what we're hearing complaints about, just so that they can be on notice of.
I most certainly think so. I think that that's a fantastic idea that we could probably institute right away.
You already have the data.
We do. We have the data. It's just formatting it and you know, ensuring that we get it out to the schools. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the excellent, very informative presentation.
Thank you.
Anything further? Yes.
No worries. I just, you know, I'm new to PCSB, but previously was on a charter school board and had the opportunity to go through this process, Teresa, with you. So I guess hearing about this switch, I actually just want to first just thank you incredible. I mean, having the opportunity to have engaged with you, I know how meaningful that facilitation is. And I think also important for parents, but also to, I think the other sort of advertisement is to, I'd sort of just say is to the boards of LEAs. I found when I was on the board of an LEA, that phone call and making sure that we're well, and that facilitated conversation helped us as boards to better engage with our staff and to oversee them. So, you know, I think it was Shakura who asked the question, but that was, I found that when I was on that board to be an incredible resource in making sure that we were then holding our team accountable in that space, because as we know, it is the board who ultimately holds the charter. So, but thank you, and just I guess a little advertisement to anyone who is currently on the board of an LEA. Just an incredible tool. Take advantage of it. Use that as a moment of reflection for your policies.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tonight, we will hold elections for officers of the Public Charter School Board. There are 4 officer positions: chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. We will go position by position. For each position, I will open the floor for nominations. Any member can nominate another member or themselves, and you're welcome to offer a brief statement of or support for your nominee or yourself if you'd like. Nominations do not need a second. Once all nominations for a particular position have been made, I will take a roll call vote. When I call each member's name, you'll simply state which nominee you are voting to elect. If there's only one nominee for a position, you can vote aye or nay. Under our bylaws, officers are elected by a majority vote of the board. We'll start with the position of board chair and then repeat the process for each position. Nominations for the position of board chair are now open.
Vice Chair Sandman, I'd like to nominate Shakura Adamafania for board chair. And if I may, a brief statement.
Please.
Yep, I've had the pleasure of serving alongside Board Member Adamafania throughout my entire tenure at DCPCSB. And I have found that she has the critical contextual and institutional knowledge, as well as deep experience and expertise in the charter sector to lead the board into what I believe to be a new place and a new time in the charter life cycle. So with that, I again nominate Board Member Shakura Adamafania as chair.
Are there other nominations for the position of board chair?
Yes, I would like to nominate myself for the position of board chair. If I can offer a brief statement.
Please.
So I'm putting myself forward as chair to ensure the voices of charter schools as well as the students and families they serve are really represented here on PCSB. My time at Washington Leadership Academy made clear to me the challenges and opportunities that lay in front of us. The landscape is shifting and the moment calls for more than steady stewardship, but really for courageous leadership and real change. The status quo is not serving students well. We cannot ignore the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, shifting accountability metrics, and the improvement of DCPS have had on schools, the charter sector, and most importantly, our children. To address these challenges, the next iteration of this board must be bold. For 2 decades, PCSB has been the cornerstone of efforts to create more opportunity for students and families. If we are to build on that legacy, we must start by securing our legitimacy and extending our impact. We need to operate differently in this next chapter, and that starts with being partners to our LEAs. It means little things like being clear on metrics, not taking the maximum funding away from kids, and getting LEAs the data and the right data quickly. But it also means leaning into and shaping the larger conversation regarding enrollment shifts, citywide education growth, and the role of charter schools. That requires not just listening to our LEAs, but hearing them and trusting them. They are on the front lines. The work they have chosen to do is hard, but it's not impossible, and getting it right is so important. It's why I joined the board, why I'm putting myself forward tonight, and as to give an opportunity here for the fellow members of the Public Charter School Board to show that we are focused on the future, that we are open to feedback and change. It will not be bound by the way things have always been done, and that we are committed to rebuilding trust and credibility with the LEAs, our City Council, and the families who have chosen DC public charter schools. I hope that my colleagues on the board have heard the calls for change and recognize the importance of this moment and will vote tonight for real change. In closing, I'm pleased to have the support of two fellow board members, Mara Marino and Leah Cruzy, neither of whom are able to join tonight's board meeting due to longstanding travel commitments, but have submitted their proxy votes to Vice Chair Sandman. And Mara also asked me to share her remarks for the record, which I believe she's also shared with you, Vice Chair.
She did. Please proceed.
Her remarks are as follows. I support the nomination of Tony Williams as chair. Tony's experience as a charter school board chair, his commitment to school quality, and his background working closely with DC government position him well to lead this board and implement change at this time.
Are there other nominations for the position of board chair? Hearing none, nominations for board chair are closed. The nominees are Shakura Adamafanian and Tony Williams. We'll now vote by roll call. When I call your name, please indicate which of the nominees you're voting for. Secretary Adamafanian.
I vote for myself.
Board Member Yan.
I vote for Shakura Adamafania.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Shakura Adamafania.
Board Member Williams.
I vote for myself.
I hold a proxy from Board Member Cruzy voting in favor of Tony Williams, and I hold a proxy from Board Member Marino voting in favor of Tony Williams. I vote for Secretary Adamafanian. Secretary Adamafanian has been elected chair. We'll now proceed with nominations for the position of vice chair. The floor is open for nominations.
Thank you. I nominate Michelle Yan to serve as vice chair. It is with deep pleasure and admiration that I nominate Michelle. Michelle is a thoughtful and deeply committed leader who brings both strategic insight and operational excellence to her work day to day, and already has brought that to the board. Over the course of her career, from teaching middle school to serving in the Deputy Mayor's of Education's office and helping to lead what was then My School DC, she has consistently focused on building systems and expanding opportunity. Michelle brings both rigor and heart to this work, and I'm grateful for the leadership that she's shown throughout her career and even now on the board. So I enthusiastically and again with great admiration nominate Michelle Yan for vice chair.
Are there other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, nominations are closed. I'll proceed to call the roll. Please vote aye or nay on the nomination of Board Member Yan to be vice chair of the board. Chair Adamafanian.
Aye.
Board Member Yan.
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
Board Member Williams.
Aye.
I hold a proxy from Board Member Leah Cruzy voting aye on Michelle Yan. I hold a proxy from Board Member Marino voting aye on Michelle Yan, and I vote aye. Michelle Yan is elected vice chair unanimously. The floor is now open for nominations for the position of treasurer. I would like to nominate Carissa Stanley Beatty for the position of treasurer. Are there other nominations? Hearing none, nominations for treasurer are closed. I'll proceed to call the vote. Chair Adamafanian.
An enthusiastic aye.
Vice Chair Yan.
Aye as well for me.
Member Stanley Beatty, I'm not quite sure.
I'm glad to continue to serve in the role.
Board Member Williams.
Aye.
I hold a proxy from Board Member Cruzy voting aye in favor of Carissa Stanley Beatty. I hold a proxy from Board Member Marino voting aye in favor of Treasurer Stanley Beatty, and I vote aye. Treasurer Stanley Beatty, you are unanimously elected treasurer. The floor is now open for nominations for the position of secretary. I would like to move the nomination of Maura Marino for the position of secretary. Are there other nominations for the position of secretary? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Chair Autumn-Afanian.
Aye.
Vice Chair Yan. Aye. Treasurer Stanley Beatty. Aye. Board Member Williams.
Aye.
I hold a proxy from Board Member Cruzy voting aye for Maura Marino for secretary. I hold a proxy from Board Member Marino voting aye in favor of Maura Marino, and I vote aye. Maura Marino is unanimously elected secretary. Madam Chair, I would now like to trade places with you.
All right. And then I have a couple words, but I'm going to get up. Thank you.
Bring your name sign.
Thank you again, and thank you, Board Member Sandman. I think you did a fantastic job as we were working through all of these pieces, and so just want to publicly appreciate you for your leadership, and thank you for that. So before we move on, I just want to take a couple of moments just to give a few remarks. First, I'd like to thank my fellow board members for the confidence that you've placed in me to serve as chair for the Public Charter School Board. It is truly an honor to step into this role alongside such thoughtful and committed colleagues, and I'm deeply grateful for the trust you've shown. I also want to acknowledge the broader charter school community, our school leaders, educators, families, and most importantly, the students whose futures sit at the center of everything we do. And I want to recognize the members of our LEA governing boards across the city who volunteer their time and expertise to steward their schools and support strong outcomes for students. For more than 2 decades, charter schools have played a transformative role in Washington, D.C.'s education landscape. They were founded on the belief that innovation, accountability, and strong partnerships with communities could expand opportunity for students across our city. That belief continues to guide this work today. But honoring that legacy also requires a willingness to continue strengthening the systems that ensure excellence for every student. A sector committed to opportunity must also be committed to reflection, learning, and continuous improvement. And that commitment will be what guides my work as chair. There is important work ahead of us. We must continue to focus on the performance of schools across the sector. Frankly, it has to improve. Every student in this city deserves access to a high-quality learning environment where they are growing academically and prepared to succeed in the future. As a board working in partnership with the agency, we have a responsibility to set the conditions and policies where excellence can thrive. That means using the tools available to us thoughtfully and responsibly, closing underperforming schools, establishing clear policies with strong expectations, maintaining a rigorous accountability system, and committing to transparency, sharing information, learning from one another, and driving continuous improvement across the sector. Before I go further, I want to share that my appointment to this board and now the opportunity to serve as chair are deeply meaningful to me, both professionally and personally. I carry a deep sense of gratitude, humility, and responsibility for the work before us. I am a proud product of the DC public education system. As a student, I witnessed the early days of the charter sector in this city. I remember hearing my parents talk about the promise of these new charter schools and wondering what this new landscape of opportunity might mean for our family. Today, I experience that system through another lens as a mom to a 6-year-old little girl who is now navigating the very same education system that shaped me. And in between those experiences lies my life's work as a teacher, former school leader, and nonprofit leader, dedicated to ensuring that every student has access to high-quality education, regardless of where they live and how they learn. That perspective grounds me deeply in this work. It reminds me that the decisions we make in this room, like this, are never abstract. They shape the daily experience, opportunities, and futures of students and families across Washington, D.C. I also want to thank Dr. Walker Davis and the entire PCSB staff. Your dedication, expertise, and steady leadership sustains this work every single day. And the truth is, none of us does this work alone. Progress will require all of us, board members, educators, school leaders, policymakers, governing boards, families, community partners, and students themselves working together with a shared sense of purpose. During my tenure as chair, I look forward to working closely with my fellow board members, with Dr. Walker Davis and the PCSB staff, with leaders across the charter sector and the governing boards that steward their schools. I look forward to working with city leaders and other partners, and with the families and communities who care deeply about the future of public education in this city. Together, we have the opportunity to strengthen trust, reaffirm our commitment to quality, and ensure that the charter sector continues to grow and evolve in the ways that best serve the students and families of Washington, D.C. And to the students of this city, I want you to know that you deserve nothing less than our very best, our highest expectations, and our strongest partnerships, and our unwavering commitment to your success. As we move forward, my hope is that we carry forward the very best of what has been built over the past 2 decades, while embracing the responsibility and the opportunity of continuing to strengthen this system for the future. Because at the end of the day, the work before us is about ensuring that the public education system in Washington, D.C. continues to grow in ways that honors the brilliance, potential, and aspirations of every student in this city. That responsibility is one I carry with deep humility and with great optimism for what we can accomplish together. Thank you. That was my first point of chair privilege. Very nice. I like it. Very good. All right. And thank you all very much for that. All right, so next we will vote on the consent calendar. Would any board member like to remove an item from the calendar for further discussion or to state a recusal for the record?
Yes, I'd like to state a recusal for Harmony Public Charter School. I'm still pending a BEGA guidance.
All right, so noted. Okay.
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
I second.
Vice Chair Sam, okay.
Former Vice Chair Sam.
Sorry, we're getting used to this here. If you could take a roll call vote for me,
I'll
please.
call the roll. Vice Chair Yan.
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty. Aye. Chair Adamafanian.
Aye.
Board Member Williams.
Aye.
I hold a proxy from Board Member Cruzy voting aye. I hold a proxy from from Secretary Marino voting aye. The consent calendar is approved.
Thank you. Okay. Tonight, the board is reading into record the subsequent financial update memos for the 2 schools undergoing review. That's it. Okay, very good. Board Member Sandman, if you could take a roll.
I don't believe we need to vote on that.
Okay, y'all, please bear with me. Just give me one meeting. I'll be ready to go. Thank you so much. All right. Is there any new business? Okay. Colleagues, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the March 9th, 2026 board meeting.
Second.
Board Member Sandman, if you can call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Yan. Aye. Treasurer Stanley Beatty. Aye. Chair Autumn
Aye.
Board Member Williams. Aye. I hold a proxy from Board Member Cruzy voting aye. I hold a proxy from Board Member Marino voting aye, and I vote aye. We are